Hello and welcome to EXP Required, where we talk about Final Fantasy and other things. I'm Jack and I'm joined by Mole. How are you doing, Mole?
It's bloody cold, Jack. It's so bloody cold. I can't handle it anymore. No, other than that, I'm good, actually. I've been tentatively looking forward to this one, this return to, this almost a return to lightning.
Yeah.
If you want to put it like that.
You nearly said a return to Evilis then, didn't you?
No, I
You
didn't.
nearly did.
No.
Well, I've got Evilis on the mind because of all the shit I've been doing with that game. So it's nice to have a little bit of a break from Evilis, as much as I love Evilis, and go back into the world of 13. What would we call the world of 13? Because it's over 2 worlds, isn't it? The 13 land.
Yeah, that's a complicated question. Because, yeah, you're right, there's Cocoon, there's Grand Pulse, and then Lightning Returns introduces a whole different world altogether. Let's just say the 13-iverse.
The 13-iverse. So let's just give this a bit of framing then. So 13-2, we're returning. Is this our first sequel we've looked at, I think, technically?
I mean, we've talked a little bit about 10-2, but yeah, this will be the first sequel proper that we've ever done in detail.
We've properly dug into. So, obviously, we typically go into these by talking about our personal memories first. So I think you've got a bit more of a personal memory history with this game, if not because you played 13 and enjoyed it a lot more when you first played it. So do you want to go first with your personal memories for 13-2?
Yeah, go on then. So it's interesting that you say that, because I don't really feel like I have too much of a... Well, maybe not. Connection's probably the wrong word, because I definitely have a connection. I played this game and I enjoyed it, but I played it relatively recently for the first time, the last time as well. This was in October of 2020, so I think this was probably have been between lockdowns at this point. And I think at the time I was just desperate for something new. I needed some kind of media obsession to just really grab me, and I think at that point I'd replayed 13. I don't remember why. Maybe a couple... I just felt like going back into the universe, you know? And a couple months had passed, and it was like, you know what, I think it might be time. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to finally play 13-2. And because this was so fresh off the back of replaying 13, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in our 13 episode, as much as I love 13, I love the plot, I love the characters, I love the music, I love the world, I fucking hate the battle system in that game. It drove me up the wall. So I was I think I was dragging my feet for a long time because I didn't want to do it again. And then I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed 13-2 so much more than I thought I was going to. Like, I went in kind of reluctantly. I went back and I looked at some notes, and I think the first day that I sat down and played it, I put in like 8.5 hours, and even then I was like, holy shit, I don't do this, ever. So yeah, really grabbed me, really enjoyed it. I think I took it slow throughout the month. Beginning of October I started, end of October I finished, and then immediately was like, I need to play Lightning Returns. Like, this one really, really grabbed me in a way I didn't expect it to. So that's my memory. What about you, Jack?
My memories are, in a way, similar, because I obviously had my less of a good experience with 13 than I guess you did back in the day. And I obviously was offended that they never made a sequel to Final Fantasy VIII, but made 2 sequels to Final Fantasy 13, which I'm slowly coming to terms with now, because...
You've got no choice.
Yes, well, that's just sad, isn't it? So, yeah, me, I put it off as well because I hated the 13 battle system, which I think we made quite clear. I thought, oh, God, you know what? I'm really interested in playing it. You've said you've liked it previously, and I thought, well, I'm intrigued by this game. It looks very pretty, and a lot of people have said that it, quote-unquote, fixes a lot of the issues with 13.
Well, we'll get into that.
we'll get into that. But I think that, I was also a bit like, oh, do I have to do it? Do I have to do it? But I had the same experience. I mean, I really enjoyed it far more than I expected I would. I had a good time playing it. I played it recently for this episode, which is quite interesting. It was a good stress buster as well, because I had a bit of a stressful time at work this year, and I really enjoyed, nipping up at lunchtime, because I work remotely, and nipping and playing like half an hour to an hour of this game.
That was your lunch breaks earlier on in the year.
My lunch breaks playing this game.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, no, I did enjoy it, and I also did quite a bit of grinding towards the end of this game, and listened to half the first series of Sam Bayart's podcast, which is It Takes a Village. I listened to quite a bit of that while grinding this game, because it needed some grinding towards the end, which we'll get into as well. So, but no, positive experience. I enjoyed it. Probably, I'd say I enjoyed it more than Final Fantasy XIII, I'll say at this point. But it's worth noting at this point, which is something that we were excitedly talking about before recording this, I've not got to Lightning Returns yet, so I don't know what happens. So...
Yes, I think you very specifically asked, like, oh, should we do this recording before or after I play Lightning Returns? And I was like, we need to do it before, because I want this episode to be just on its own, completely unaware of it. So, just for the audience's sake, Jack, can you confirm what you do know of Lightning Returns at this point? Because it's not very much, is it?
All I know about Lightning Returns is that you can put the Cloud Strife outfit on.
Yep.
I think they made Lightning's boobs bigger.
Yep.
And I believe there's a chocobo in it.
Big, if true. If the Final Fantasy games ever have a chocobo in it, that's spoiler territory, my man.
No, I mean like there's a specific chocobo.
Yep.
Like I think we talked about it in one of our lists. There was a named chocobo.
That's right. Yes.
And it's something to do with time as well. I think it's like a Majora's Mask type thing going on with it. That's literally all I know about Lightning Returns.
And that's why I wanted to keep this one as is.
Yeah, and I do know like a bit like, about its place in the series, that it's supposedly the favourite of the trilogy for a lot of people.
Who the hell have you been speaking to?
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's just like a general gist of, it gets good by the time Lightning Returns comes out. That's like the general feeling I get from people. Perhaps that's just the weirdos I've been hanging around with. I don't know.
Losing my shit at that concept. Okay, carry on.
But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to playing that game. But your face, I'm not looking forward to playing that game.
I'm looking forward to hearing about it. But let's pull it back. Let's focus on 13.2 for now.
So let's just dip into the release of this game before we go into the pre-release, because that's what we do. So this game, Final Fantasy XIII-2, it came out in Japan on December the 15th, 2011, originally.
Okay.
On the PS3 and the Xbox 360. January 31st, 2012, on the same two consoles in North America. February 2nd in Australia, and February 3rd in Europe. So it came out the day after in Europe, which is normally the way around, bizarrely.
It's really interesting to me that at this point in time, and this is relatively recent, this is only 15 odd years ago, they're still doing the staggered releases, because now, for the most part worldwide, I've gotten so used to everything releasing simultaneously, when it wasn't like that, when we were kids. And so to still see, and I know it was only, a few months, 6 months or so, give or take, that's still a fairly long time.
I'd be interested to delve into that. I don't really know. I'd imagine it might be because maybe physical media was a bigger deal back then, and it was to do with flights and shipping. Whereas now, digital releases are easy to do. I don't really know, but I was quite surprised. The most surprising thing being that it came out in Europe a day after it came out in Australia. I don't know why that was.
We need to give the Aussies a win at least once in their
Yeah,
lives.
you can have 13.2. It's cool. You can have it a day early. It's fine. You can have that one. But yeah, and then it came out on December 11th, 2014. On Windows worldwide.
Right.
And then September 25th, 2015 on iOS and Android in Japan.
I'm sorry?
In Japan, apparently so. Apparently it came out on Android and iOS in 2015.
Sorry, could you repeat
apparently
that?
So.
Final Fantasy XIII-2 in Japan is an iOS and Android mobile game.
Apparently so. Well, it might be like a tablet game. I don't know.
That is fucking insane to me. Okay.
I'm gonna check that now just in case. No, that's wrong. I'm an idiot. Like, why the fuck did I put that in there? Let's put that.
Were you thinking of 15 Pocket Edition?
I think I just left it in the thing from the notes. That's good. That's a good start. Good start. So yes,
we're a trustworthy podcast.
Yeah. So we're releasing a new app soon. It's called Final Fantasy XIII-2. It doesn't star Noel and
spat
Serah.
water everywhere.
It stars Jack coming through time to come to Mole's Island Paradise. And then,
in fairness, and this is a little bit of a tangent quite early on for us, but in fairness, I probably would be interested in a pocket edition for some of the other Final Fantasy games, because Final Fantasy 15 did do that. I'd be interested to see maybe a slightly truncated version of that in other games.
Yeah, and you've just started talking about that just so you can leave my mistake in. Thanks, Mole. Just for the listeners' experience, that was just because it was a leftover from my last template of the episode. So yeah, there is no 13 on unless, of course, it was a timeline change, and there was the original.
Oh boy,
originally
here we go.
The timeline, because this game's all about timeline changes. So, but we'll get into that. Let's move around the timeline again and shift around, and let's talk a little bit about this game's release and pre-release. I think so. This was first announced in January 2011, so not really long before it came out, so less than a year before it came out.
Yeah, damn. Okay.
At a Square Enix press event. I found an interesting Reddit page with a link to a Gematsu article discussing the 2011 Square E3 lineup, which is just before the E3 event happened, with all of the games included. Now, do you want to take a guess at what any of those games that came out from Square Enix at the time were?
Square Enix in 2011? Oh, Jesus.
Do you want to guess what game wasn't there?
Final Fantasy 15?
Final Fantasy Versus 13 was not there.
I should have seen that one coming.
So interestingly, we talked about Final Fantasy Versus 13 in a previous episode. And of course, this year was the year when the gameplay trailer came out. So it's interesting how it wasn't shown off at E3, which I think is quite funny. I thought this was quite interesting as a little bit of like a time capsule, because the games that came out or were coming out or being announced at the Square Enix event in 2011 at E3 were Deus Ex Human Revolution, Dungeon Siege 3, Final Fantasy XIII-2, obviously, Heroes of Ruin, Hitman Absolution, Tomb Raider, which ages this.
Yeah.
Really ages it for me. Like, it makes me think, oh my god, yeah, it's the Tomb Raider reboot. My god,
Damn.
it's Square Enix. So that was the games that were getting announced at that time. This was the trailer that showed for the game. Was basically like some of the CG opening and some gameplay with Noel and Serah.
Right.
And it interestingly ends with the line, "Get a hold of yourself, lightning is dead." Which I think is a really bold move for a trailer to make, considering the fact that lightning is a massive part of the marketing.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of how polarizing the 13 game was, most people like lightning.
I mean, she's the poster girl for 13.
Yeah, so like the fact that they kind of like doubled down on some of the like, again, quote unquote negative press for the game and thought, well, everyone likes lightning, let's say she's dead, is really, really cool. And I believe it is the lady from Nora that says that in the trailer.
Oh, what's her name? LeBrew?
LeBleur, the only good member of Nora. Anyway, so she says that at the end of the trailer. So that's really, really cool. Now, I'm going to go a little bit into the Square Enix booth, for want of a better term, at E3, because oh my fucking god. Not quite as cool as the Final Fantasy VIII Delling City Tower with the big life-size Adia in it, because that looks like the time I want to go back to, or the Stargate being there at E3 2004, I think. But it's the biggest TV or screen I have ever seen in my life. Honestly, I will give you a link to the footage. It is fucking massive. Like, it's probably bigger than my house. Like, maybe not quite that big, but it is a big old TV. And I'm looking at this thinking, logistically, how the fuck did they get this thing in? And of course, it's next to a bunch of FF13-2 set up as playable games.
Right.
Now, basically, the demo that was shown off was also shown off in an IGN exclusive on the show floor. And basically, the demo is Noel and Serah going into Brescia. And on this video, there's some amazing comments from around the time, which is a little bit of a time capsule as well. So one of the comments, now bearing in mind this came out almost as a response to Final Fantasy XIII, one of the comments is, but what if there are too many towns? Which I think is fucking brilliant, right? Another comment says, no FF7 remake equals game is horrible.
Okay, well, I'm glad that one still persists then.
Now, bearing in mind that this is showing off Serah and Noel, it says, so, Serah is cheating on Snow.
Yeah, I do remember seeing a lot of that in the preceding days.
And then the final comment that's quite is, they copy Tales of Symphonia 2's concept, very original Square Enix. So those are the comments against the E3, which are probably more interesting than the actual E3 video. So they basically show off a demo of you fighting the big hand in Brescia. I can't remember what the big hand is, but it's like a very sort of like...
yes. Yeah, I know the one you mean.
And obviously it shows off the QuickTime events in the game, which were a big deal back in 2011. And it's quite a surreal footage, because it's sort of like the journalist there and the PR sitting there saying, so we're playing this, so we're playing that, and they haven't got controllers in their hand. So they're like showing like pre-recorded footage, like, so we're doing this now. Like, they haven't even just like plugged one in as a prop. It's just like, we're doing this, and like somehow telekinetically playing the game, which I think is quite funny.
Makes me think of that one scene in Charlie's Angels where you've got the two kids on controllers playing Final Fantasy VIII. Yeah,
two-player Final Fantasy VIII, which is which it is cringeworthy. But the journo and that look at the map and talk about how they can expand the map and heading away from Final Fantasy XIII's linearity. For me, that's the best part about this game, the fact they fixed the fucking map from Final Fantasy XIII. And it doesn't spin around with you when your perspective changes. But obviously, they were talking about how they've changed it from Final Fantasy XIII, which is really interesting, because I think 13 wasn't a flop in any way. I mean, obviously, but it was one of those kind of like, critically well received, sold very well, but there was a bit of fan backlash about certain things about it.
Yeah.
It's very interesting hearing at this point, before the game's come out, quite clearly Square were considering that as part of the game's design.
I think the most impressive thing about that as well is if this game came out in 2011 and Final Fantasy XIII came out in 2009, that's not an awful lot of time. Again, I know we talked about this with the Versus 13 and then the FF15 episode that we did, where we started talking, and 16 as well, actually, where we started talking about, like, the length of time that we start seeing in this period about it's 10 odd years since the last game released. Is it going to be the same in the future? But to see that the immediate sequel comes out 2 years afterwards, and they've already taken on board, like, fan reception of the linearity, or maybe even, God forbid, they realised as they were making 13, they were like, let's not do it like this for the next one, you know? Like, that's really interesting to me, just because it is such a short period of time.
That's interesting to me. While I was doing some research for this video, and it's probably a good time to sort of maybe touch upon this a little bit more now, is that I've looked at quite a lot of the press around this game when it came out, including this. Obviously, I've got a copy of 360 magazine from around the time of a review of the game. Pretty much all the press I can find, including a great video, which is the OXM breakdown, which is, I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a sort of quote unquote silly review from the era of the, the sort of the daft review era of YouTube. Really good video, explaining Final Fantasy XIII-2, and there's quotes in there about Square have listened to us, they've changed the game from 13. To me, it's very interesting to see whether or not that was something that perhaps Square wanted to do with 13 when they were making it, and there were troubles creating it, or it was a response to what the fans wanted. It's almost like I don't know if we'll ever know whether it was the game they always wanted to create, or because they didn't want to create it that way, they were happy with what 13 turned out like.
I mean, there was also the whole palaver with Versus 13 not being able to get a start on until they've made everything. So yeah, I would be very, very surprised if we ever get clarification on not just this, but quite a lot of behind-the-scenes things with regards to 13 and the trilogy and Versus 13 and 15. And God, what a nightmare.
Yeah, but it's definitely an interesting thing to sort of ponder about, because obviously, like, I don't think I've ever hated any of these games, but like obviously 16, some people have made comments about how they don't like the battle system in 16, or the phrase that comes out is that, oh, it's good, but it's not a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah.
Now, clearly, Square have gone away and made the game they wanted to make.
Yes.
So it's interesting in this era, maybe that was the case then, and perhaps but the whole time they were saying, no, this is what we wanted to make. It's not because the fans have said we want this, we've given you exactly what you want. It's because, we wanted to make it this way as well, fans. We just ran out of time. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think we'll ever know, but it's definitely worth considering that, because I don't think that it's necessarily that they went, you know what, let's give you everything you want.
Yeah.
Worth considering how big a part of the marketing that was. It's almost like, the PR was saying, oh, by the way, like...
we know we fucked up. We changed it, I promise.
The fact that it's in, like, the demo, oh, here's a town to explore, here's people you can talk to, and, it's very, very different and stuff like that, One of the other things that's quite interesting about this, it shows off a little bit more gameplay later of it raining in Brescia, and obviously from some of the footage I've seen from E3, that's the stuff you can see on the show floor. So presumably the demo that the guys were playing, quote unquote, was a demo you could play. It's the same one. I don't know if we're ever going to find that out either, but it looks like this was the early demo of the game that was playable. They also talk about other characters, and the PR's like, oh, we're just showing off the initial two, which is quite interesting considering I think there was this sort of like talk about how the fact that there may be other characters playable, which there really weren't.
No, there really, really was not. I think that's also not helped by... I mean, the trailer itself and the actual opening of 13-2 has Lightning and Caius fighting against each other, and you do actually have control over Lightning at that point. So if they did show off that prologue at E3, I would probably be inclined to say, like, oh, this is going to be a split story then. So yeah, I can see that.
It definitely looked that way, especially considering how much Lightning's massively part of the marketing.
Oh, big time. More than Serah.
More than Serah. I mean, on the Xbox 360 cover, Lightning's there as an asset for the magazine. And also, there's another interview, I think it was made by someone else, with Toriyama and Kitase at E3.
Toriyama?
Where Toriyama, I believe I'm sure it's Toriyama.
So you say Toriyama, I think Dragon Ball, not Final Fantasy.
According to the description, it's Toriyama.
Toriyama? Okay.
Yeah, so it's an interview with Motomu Toriyama and Kitase, Yoshinori Kitase at E3. And Toriyama confirms that all the FF13 cast will appear in Final Fantasy XIII-2, which I believe is correct.
Yes, technically correct, but we'll get onto that later.
So yes, it's very interesting. Now we'll get to the place in the series. So that's the sort of like buzz around it. It's difficult to tell without the buzz at the time, but looking at the E3 buzz, this was one of the bigger things that Square was showing off. It's also worth mentioning at this time that there was a massive Dark Souls booth, because Dark Souls came out this year as well, which just goes to show how long ago it was.
Oh, see, the wild thing for me is that Dark Souls is just one of those ever-present things that I forget that it's not actually that old.
Yeah.
That's really fucked up my view of the world.
And I thought it was quite, interesting to talk about, some of the games that are out at the same time.
Absolutely.
To just frame it, because to me this feels like a very new game, whereas Dark Souls doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Dark Souls, like you say, it feels like it's
been around
there
forever.
Whereas Final Fantasy XIII-2 is like, I'll get to that eventually. So no, place in the series, removing all the Toriyama talk. So the director for this game is Motomu Toriyama, and the producer is Yoshinori Kitase.
Yes.
So looking at the place in the series, the team was largely the same between Final Fantasy XIII and XIII-2. Same director, same producer, same programmer. Toriyama is not credited as a writer, whereas it's
that was going to be my follow-up question. Do you know if it was the same scenario writer or not? Because I don't.
Daisuke Watanabe, yeah. He's credited as the writer with Toriyama on 13, but credited on his own for 13 too.
Right, okay.
Again, it's Wikipedia. I don't know how much we can trust that, but the artists are the same. Tetsuo Yonemura, Kamiko Kurio as well, artist-wise.
Yes. Yeah, he's the lead artist for all 3 games, wasn't he?
I believe so, yes. And of course, but Tetsuo Yonemura, obviously turns up all the time, as we know.
You say his name 3 times in a mirror and he'll appear behind you if you're in the Square Enix headquarters.
Nomura, no. So basically it's mostly the same crew from the looks of it. But apparently what's very interesting about this game is that Square consulted Eidos, who were a European subsidiary of the company, to take a more Western approach to making the game. So they had more gates and deadlines, which apparently is a Western thing. Very interesting. And also subcontracted some work to Tri-Ace, which is a Japanese studio who made Star Ocean and Valkyrie Profile quite nicely.
Right, okay. Didn't realise it had quite so much external influence then.
Yeah, so from what I read, Final Fantasy XIII was so high profile that they wanted to keep it a secret. So testing wasn't done until later in the process. Whereas it was done much earlier for Final Fantasy XIII-2. There's a Game Informer article where they kind of, they said that they pretty much just admitted, look, we wanted it. Clearly from, discussions about this in the past, quite openly from a lot of developers, the HD era, the PS3 onwards, was a lot more difficult to develop for everyone. And I think a lot of studios underestimated it. So the fact that they've brought in, more testing early on, I think shows in the final product, but we'll get to that in a minute. And apparently, according to a VG247 article, Toriyama told RPG Site that this would be the first Final Fantasy game with multiple endings. Which is weird considering
I'm leaving that silence in. Excuse me.
The fact that Final Fantasy X-2 also had multiple endings.
Oh, okay. Carry on, yeah. I've got nothing more to say to that.
Now, here's a question for you.
Oh boy.
Who do you think directed Final Fantasy X-2? It was Motomu Toriyama.
You're shitting me. Oh my god.
So a game he directed 5 or 6 years before, he didn't remember that there was multiple endings in, which maybe the timelines changed while he was making the game, and maybe...
Oh boy. Oh, that one actually physically hurts me a little bit. I can't tell a lot. Oh, Jesus Christ. To be fair, the endings in 10-2, they aren't really, as big differentially as the endings that you can get in 13-2, but, there are still multiple endings.
Get fucked. It's the most famous multiple ending in Final Fantasy X, when you can rescue Tidus.
Perfect ending or normal ending. Yeah. Why would you give them different... It's fuck's sakes.
Oh, there we go. That's hurt you, hasn't it? But the fact is, the fucking guy that directed it forgot about Final Fantasy X-2.
It was clearly a busy few years for him.
Yeah, like I say, all the timeline changed. Or maybe he was just so stubborn that, no, it's got to be one ending. But apparently, and maybe this is just some way... Clearly at this point, this is when, Square were pushing a bit more west in some ways, because it says in the article it was inspired by Rockstar's Red Dead Redemption, which was obviously a massive game from around the time.
Say that again. 13-2 was inspired by Red Dead Redemption.
It was, yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Carry on.
Yeah, with side missions being a big thing in Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, notably absent from Final Fantasy XIII. So if they did take that cue, then thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that was it, yeah. Apparently Toriyama also said that development of towns for the PS1 games would be quite boring. So obviously, that was the thing that was a big thing, clearly, from the press. We want more towns! We want more towns! He's like, no, we don't want to make towns, man. Even though they've made loads of towns.
God.
So, yeah. Now, what I think's really interesting is that reception-wise, this did really well. It got a 40 out of 40 perfect score from Famitsu.
Okay.
which is the second game in the Final Fantasy series to get that. Do you know what the other one is? You're probably not going to know.
I'm going to have to take a guess with this one, but I'm going to say 9.
No, 12 got a perfect score
Damn,
for Mitsu,
okay.
apparently. Yeah.
For Mitsu with a good taste, holy shit.
Yeah, well, yes. Now, over 500k copies have sold in the first week in Japan for this game, which is not as popular at 13, but a massive seller that year. But quite interesting that like Western reviewers are a bit harsh on this. So Metacritic overall gave it 79. I can't really find an accurate source for sales figures, but I know it did well. It didn't flop or anything like that. But it's really interesting considering the fact what I've just talked about, with the fact there was more Western developers involved with the development, and it was more influenced by Western games. It's the fact that like, no, we don't want our games reflected. We want your games. That's very interesting how like, for all the wanting to be a bit more Western in a sense, it didn't impress the West as much as it impressed the East, which I think is quite interesting, See,
I'm quite interested that you've said that all, because considering I was around and like very definitely following the release of 13, I don't really recall any marketing or like any hype at all really for 13-2. I was a bit more aware of it for Lightning Returns, but 13-2 is kind of like a bit of a void between the two for me. And I don't know if that was just because I was doing something different. Like in 2011, I would have been preparing for and going to university. So, there were big changes in my life at the time, but I wouldn't have thought that university is university. Final Fantasy is forever. I've always been clued into this shit. So the fact that this has kind of passed me by is genuinely quite surprising. And that also goes for like the general reception as well. Like, I don't really remember anyone in my sphere at the time talking about 13-2, with like maybe one or two exceptions. And even then, the way that people that I knew were talking about it at the time was just to say, I've played it. And that was it. I never heard anything more. And that might have been because at the time I was like, oh, don't tell me, I might get around to it sometime. But also,
maybe,
it was only out on PS3, wasn't it? Or did it come out on Xbox as well?
Xbox 360.
Well? Okay, yeah. Well, if I was going to uni that year, I would have been moving away from the Xbox that my dad owned, and I couldn't just take his Xbox to uni with me, so I would never have had a chance to play that. So, yeah.
Unless it's a coincidence, I have sort of a similar feeling to you, because I remember Lightning Returns being a bigger deal than 13-2. Perhaps that's because people really like Lightning, because quite clearly Lightning really isn't in this game. Spoiler alert. We'll get to that in a minute. I've got a couple more little things that I've taken notes from different articles. The Xbox 360 magazine that I bought, the phrase they actually use just to talk about the bit I said before, it says, in Final Fantasy XIII-2, there's this very strong sense that reparations have been made in response to criticism. That's an actual line from the article. And there's an IGN article from around the time with a quick news clip with a reference to a Katase interview. So this is a sort of secondary source.
Right.
And it talks about cut content from the first game being in a new game from October the 5th, 2010. So there was a talk around the fact that clearly, going back on that sort of conversation before, clearly there was an element of perhaps maybe the developers weren't quite happy with how 13 turned out, regardless of how well it was received. And clearly, this game's got a lot more content in it. You could definitely say that. It's a lot more broad.
It's meatier.
Yeah, and yeah, so like I say, it's interesting to theorize how much it was changed because of fan reaction compared to, the artists themselves being frustrated. But yeah, no, a really interesting thing. And like I say, I mean, I was in a slightly different time of my life, but I have the same feeling about you that for 13-2, it felt very sort of,
it
understated.
Exists, but
it exists. It didn't ever feel like a big deal to me until I played it. So
okay, so my question for you then, Jack. Obviously, this game came out. It passed us both by. Both of us have only played it recently. What was your thoughts on it?
I really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed Final Fantasy XIII-2. Way more than I expected to enjoy it. I think I texted you after I finished saying it's like my top 5. I think that was just like, a sort of
immediate reaction. Yeah, I remember getting that text and being like, Jesus, I mean, it was good, but it wasn't that good.
No, I don't think it's in my top 5 Final Fantasies.
Yeah.
I would say that I think that it's one of the most interesting Final Fantasies. And it's probably one of the easier ones to play. It might actually be an interesting entry point for people, this game, because it's quite easy to pick up and play. I think that might be biased by the fact that I'd had, Final Fantasy XIII bully me into it with its battle system.
That. I'm lovely to you.
No, the game bullied me.
Oh, right.
I think they used the phrase which was like Final Fantasy XIII gaslights you into enjoying its enjoying its battle system, because that you have to get good at the battle system to be able to beat the game. So it could be because of that, and it might not be a very good entry point. But this just feels like a so much simpler version of that, because it's essentially the same system.
I think we talked about this offline when you finished it or when you were playing through it as well, but like functionally the battle system isn't really all that different to 13's. Like you still have the 3 character setup, with the 3rd slot being occupied by monsters that you can pick up around the world, and we'll talk a bit more specifically about that later, I'm sure. But you know, it's still paradigm based. There's still only 6 roles that you can fit into, and the roles are the jobs. They have very specific things you can do. Functionally, it is identical to 13's battle system. And yet I enjoyed 13-2's battles so much more. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just because the characters were different or the way of leveling up was not as bottlenecked as the Crystarium, perhaps. But I really, really had fun with 13-2's battle system. Like, genuinely, I wanted to fight more battles because I liked it, and I was very surprised by that.
I think there's 2 things. I think that it's because bottlenecking, like you said, was removed. So in Final Fantasy XIII, frustratingly, it's tutorial based. You can only level characters up to a certain point before you move on to the next place. In this game, that's not the case. You can pretty much level up any criteria or any attribute you want. Really. You can make yourself each character to be as high leveled as whatever in what you want.
I do remember about, like, after putting maybe about 30 hours into the game, I did accidentally stumble on, like, oh, this is the best stats. And I was like, oh, where were you, like, before I started this fucking game?
But it's interesting because I think one of my criticisms of 13, and I've said this before, again, it's not bad game design, but what I think I was talking about the Bartandalus fight in 13, where essentially there's only one way to beat that fight.
Yes.
You have to beat it a certain way. You're fulfilling a puzzle of do this paradigm setup, and eventually you will beat it and spend 30 hours doing it, and eventually you'll do it. And I've always been a bit annoyed about things that you can only solve a certain way. You need to have that second option to be able to do it. And I think the problem with 13 was that being able to brute force by grinding was never an option, or it was certainly an option, but was a pain in the arse.
Yeah.
In this game, you've got the option of grinding, and I know you've talked about in the past how you don't really like grinding, but to me, having it as a safety net of like, you know what, I'm really frustrated with this boss. I don't really care about learning how to do it quote unquote properly. I'd rather spend 10 minutes just battling, leveling up enough to be able to brute force it.
No, I agree, actually. Like, having said that I fucking hate grinding, and you're right, because I do fucking hate grinding. Yeah, you're completely right, because you can kind of brute force in 13 up to a certain point, but if you don't have the rest of the Crystarium unlocked, and it is story locked as well, you can't physically do anymore. And as much as I don't like grinding, having the option to just go, I'll put on a podcast or just like listen to some different music or something and just sit down and get this done, and then I can move past this. That option is very nice to have. I completely agree.
I mean, the way this game's set up, and we can probably talk a little bit about how it's designed. Essentially, it's a time travel game. We'll get into the story beats in a minute, but essentially, it's a lot more exploration in this game.
Yes.
It encourages you to explore. It's a lot less linear than Final Fantasy XIII. I mean, let's be honest. I think that, a road is much less linear than Final Fantasy XIII.
Wow.
Because it's the most linear game in history. But no, this game is very... it's almost like unlinear to an extreme. You know what I mean? You can pretty much do lots of things in whatever order you want, in a sense. But because of the fact that it encourages you to explore different timelines and different places, by the time you get from one end of like one timeline to another, you'll have pretty much fought loads of battles. And I think because they've made each battle easier than, not every single battle is a puzzle you have to solve with a certain paradigm setup. There are a few monsters you can just bash through on your way, and that makes it a lot more enjoyable. Every 5th or 6th battle is a more challenging one. I like that as opposed to every single fucking one. And it plays a lot less in your memory. So like on 13, I remember that, can't remember the name of the place. I can never remember the name of the place, but the bit before you fight Odin on the bridge in the junkyard or whatever it is. There's like 2 or 3 different fights there, and you need to have 2 or 3 different paradigm setups to be able to beat each of those monsters, and that just gets really confusing to me. It's like, oh my god, I can't remember what setup is it for these guys,
especially when it resets when you're given different teams, and then you have to struggle to get them back again, and it's different. Completely understand and agree with you. And having just Serah and Noel and whatever monster you so desire in the party as well really, really makes that so much clearer.
Yeah, and that's something that's notable, that pretty much you just play as Serah and Noel through this game.
Yes.
There's a couple of times you play as Lightning, and there's a couple of times where I think Snow joins your party.
Mm-hmm. But he's only a guest member, so you're not really controlling him per se.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of times where some of the other characters like do stuff like, next to your battle and things like that. Yeah. But for the most part, you're absolutely right. It's 2 characters with a 3rd member being the monster. Now, I like that. Quite a lot. I think it works really well for the storytelling approach that the 13 series tends to take. I mean, I think I've talked about in 13 a lot about how there was lots of exposition and lots of it was a struggle because no character was you in 13. There was no one that was there as like the
stand-in,
the person that didn't know anything. You know what I mean? Like you had, I think they were trying to maybe do that with Hope, but the problem was Hope knew a load of shit about the foul seas and all this other shit that was going on. Each of those characters had their own, very well written backstory from their perspective, but there was no. You
don't have the audience stand-in at that point. Is that something that you prefer in narratives? Out of interest,
I do prefer that in narratives, and I think that. It's done really well in this game. So, do I prefer that in narratives? I think that you need to know who you're empathizing with, right? At the very least. And I think the idea of 13 is you're supposed to be empathizing with all of them, which at times can be quite challenging with that cast, especially early on. But having that entry-level character, and I mean, what Final Fantasy is very good at is kind of letting you pick who that character is in a lot of senses, especially, something like Final Fantasy IX does it really well, where, like, essentially you've all these characters that are fish out of water because they're thrown together. You've got a little bit of Zidane knowing a bit more about the world, so he's not really your audience character. Vivi's really your audience character in that game, is essentially, you've turned up in this world and you've no idea what you're doing. It's done really well in Final Fantasy VIII, where effectively, all the characters are students and they're young kids and they don't know anything. You don't know anything. Final Fantasy VII's done spectacularly because you're Cloud. He's got amnesia, doesn't really know who he is. It's really good. And whereas I think 13, obviously you talked about, it'd be interesting to hear your take in a second, but 13 isn't like that. Whereas 13-2,
you have Noel as the stand-in this time.
You have Noel as the stand-in, as the person he's come from the future and he's kind of you in a sense. But also I think Serah as well. I think that's a lot to do with the fact that if you've played 13, Serah is kind of the objective of that game, for want of a better term. You can empathise with Serah because you've had the experience of Final Fantasy 13. It would be really interesting to see what people thought of 13-2 if they hadn't played 13. But I think it's just the setup between those two characters, the fact you've got this, Noel's the kind of inverse Tidus, you see, Tidus obviously in Final Fantasy X comes out of, is the Isekai thing, and comes out of his world into the world, and he's the fish out of water.
Yeah.
Noel is that person, but you see him secondary. You see him from Serah's perspective. I think that's a really interesting setup, and I just think that it works really, really well for me. It's certainly easier to digest in the short term. What's your take then? What's your interest? What's your point?
So it's a really interesting question, because I think for the most part, narratives when it comes to games, I think it is slightly different when it's movies or TV or books, because it's just a different set of skills. So with games, I think it is kind of necessary for the most part to have an audience stand-in. You need to be able to empathize. You need to be able to go, okay, well, I can latch onto this guy who clearly doesn't know anything. This might be information offered to me by way of tutorial or a bit of exposition, but it's necessary, and it's, I can excuse it for the sake of the narrative. I completely understand that people can have problems with 13 because of that. I completely agree. I would say that probably Hope is the closest that you get to a stand-in, but like you say, Hope has knowledge of the world. He's still a kid at that point, but he has, been going to school. He knows his stuff. He does a bit of explaining to Vanille very early on in the prologue, so it's not even like he's completely fresh-eyed. I personally didn't have a problem with 13, narrative-wise in that case. I really liked being thrown into the thick of it, and I'm immersed, because these characters know what they're talking about, and this is obviously just something that I have to shut up and learn about. And I'm fine with doing that. I don't think 13's introduction would have been as strong if there had been a need for exposition intros as well as battle tutorials at the same time. There was so much happening in the intro of 13 that it's a bit like... I think they balanced it perfectly well. But then the beginning of 13 is so much more fast-paced than the beginning of 13-2. So I think being able to slow it down and go, okay, well, look, presumably you're coming off knowing, this is a sequel and you know at least a little bit about the world, and if not, here's a handy quick recap anyway. But, here is now your audience stand-in. It's a lot slower. We're just going to go, oh, nice little beach town, and then suddenly monsters, and then here's a guy going, I can help, by the way, who the fuck are you people? Why are you dressed like that? How come you're not all, freaking out about the rest of the world? And then you can just go from there. That's kind of where I am on it. I think it worked in 13, and I can completely understand why it wouldn't work for others. I think they did it perfect with 13-2 as well.
It's interesting, because I'd never really thought of it like that before. I mean, obviously, I did think that 13 was a bit different with its narrative choices. I think the issue I have with that is that there's too much, I think exposition is the right word, too much world building goes on.
There's a lot of suddenly new terms that you have to be like, okay, well, this is going to get thrown around a lot. What the fuck is a l'Cie? What's a foul C? Shut up.
Whereas in Final Fantasy XII, which obviously has, I think Varn's supposed to be your...
Yes.
You know, there was a lot of issues with that development where they, you know, were changing who the main character was going to be. But essentially that's who Varn becomes. But that game obviously wrestles with who, you know, your standing character is quite a lot. But it works in that game because the way that it's sold, you know, the exposition and the world building is sold through the, you know, the typical Ivalice diary thing. And it's almost like you can very quickly tune in with what you don't and do need to know.
I think the difference between 12 and 13 in that regard is that 12 is very... If you know fantasy, if you know very vague feudalist terms, I suppose, it's a lot easier to get to grips. Oh, okay, an airship, fine, but like, here's a consul, here's an emperor who's dead, here's a king who's also been killed, whatever, that's fine. 13 is so futuristic and so, I guess, bizarre in a way that it has to introduce new terms, and no one knows what a fucking fal'Cie is at the beginning of the game. Nobody knows what a fal'Cie is. We're all on the same level playing ground here.
Does anyone know what a fal'Cie is now? No, no. I think that, and again, I don't want to slightly turn this into a dunking on 13 exercise, because I do have a point, being that 13, it was difficult for me playing 13 because I couldn't work out the bits that I could switch my brain off to. Is like, that's background lore, and bits that I needed to know because I needed to understand how the story worked and how the game worked. In this, for some reason, and I don't know why it is, none of that stuff really matters. It flavors the narrative. You know, the fal'Cie stuff mentions again. The l'Cie's mentioned the fact that the Grand Pulse, you've moved to Grand Pulse from Cocoon. That's talked about, and it's talked about that, you know, like, pretty much, I think Serah's the only person that... It flashes back to the ending of Final Fantasy XIII, and Serah's the only person that remembers it a certain way.
Yes.
I think that's why there's a kind of link of, oh, hang on a minute, like, we saw this happen. This person's seen it a different way, and we're almost the person that goes, no, it happened this way.
Yeah.
We're that person. You know, that's the setup. And then obviously, like you say, with Noel...
That's a really good point, actually. I hadn't considered Sarah as the stand-in in that regard.
But, well, Noel is as well, because Noel gets that sort of mission from Lightning at the beginning. So so both of them automatically become, you know, it's quite clear what those characters want from the very, very beginning of the game. It's easy to jump into quickly, and it's easy to empathise with those characters quicker, you know?
Yeah, that's completely fair. I think, as you were saying, this is something that just occurred to me as well. I think part of the reason why 13.2 is so much more digestible than, like, the beginning of 13 or the introduction to 13 is that, and this is something that I kind of sort of take issue with, and we will get into this properly probably later, but 13 presents the world in a very specific way. It has fal'Cie, it has l'Cie, it has, you are 6 people on the run and we don't have time to sit down and discuss the history of the world. You can read bits and pieces about it in the data logs, but otherwise there is something very specific going on, and we don't really deviate from that mission, and that's fine. I really appreciate that about 13, because it's telling a story. If you don't look at the data logs, it doesn't really meander away from that story. 13.2 and Lightning Returns kind of changed the entire way that the world is being presented. All of a sudden, where, you know, you have godly influence coming from the fal'Cie and turning people into l'Cie, and, oh, you have focus, whatever, in 13. None of that's really important anymore. Everything that you learned in 13, don't forget it. Like, just generally remember it, because it'll help you with, like, world building and knowing, you know, maybe a term here or there. But for the most part, the fal'Cie aren't an issue. l'Cie aren't an issue. You just have people that came out of the big sphere in the sky, and they now live on the beach, having mirrored their hometown for whatever. And all of a sudden, you have new things to worry about, like time travel, or, oh, you know, the gods are fighting, and they have this eternal battle going on through their proxies, Caius and Lightning. Whatever, that's fine. Lightning Returns then ups the ante, I suppose, even further, by turning it into so much more of a godly, deity, religious story overall, that you can see the through line between these 3 things, or these 3 narratives, but individually, they don't really have that much in common with each other, which is one of my biggest frustrations with the 13 trilogy as a whole, is I wish it had been mapped out better and been able to be a bit more cohesive overall. Like, if you're going to make a story overall about the gods, have that introduction be in 13, even if it's background, have it be a bit more forefront in 13.2, and then Lightning Returns then clears up the trilogy. Or, if it's going to be about, you know, the struggle between fal'Cie and l'Cie and being human, whatever, fine. But then carry that over a bit more into 13.2, and then return to it in Lightning Return. There needs to be some kind of through line other than, first your gods play things, now you're doing time travel, and lightning returns is lightning returns. You know, it's
We'll get to that.
they've made choices.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's interesting actually, because of the way they serve up the god part is a lot more explicit in this game.
Yes.
That in Final Fantasy XIII, one of my criticisms was that at the end, you're Falsey, you're basically taking time bombs. You've got, it's this kind of like argument between fates. You've got to follow what the gods have told you to do, or otherwise you'll become a flipping, walking zombie monster thing, or you'll turn into a crystal. You've got no choice. And there's the whole point of like, let's defy our fate. And it gets revealed in this game that Etros saves you from your fate as Falsey crystals, or
that's the whole reason why you turn back from crystalline to people at the end of the game.
I think it's talked about in the data logs in 13, but it's revealed in this game. I'm pretty sure. I mean, that's my memory of it anyway. It might have been some of the reading I did around it, but Etro's a lot in ever present
Forefront
in this game.
That's it. That's exactly it. The gods in 13, you're right, they are mentioned and hinted at in the data logs, but for the most part, all you're going to be hearing about is the Maker. And even that's it doesn't matter to the plot. This is just something that you can overhear and read in the data log, and then no one in the party mentions it. At no point on your 30, 40, 50 odd adventure running around Grand Pulse, at no point do Fang and Vanille go, oh, by the way, here's a history and like a mythology lesson for you. You just don't know. You don't know, which is why the through line between them, I think, it frustrates me. Can you tell? no
NPCs. That's the issue. I mean, I think that that's really Final Fantasy. I mean, I love this has turned into a sort of way to segue into dunking on Final Fantasy XIII.
This is Final Fantasy XIII-2, but not in the way you were expecting it to be.
I think that obviously we were undoubtedly going to talk about how it links in with 13 because it's a sequel, but I think that because there was so few NPCs in that game and you were on the run, you couldn't get the world building
precisely
come through chatting, and that's what this game does really, really well. Yes. And what's interesting is that it doesn't really talk about that god stuff, super exposition-y.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just there in the chats. It's not like, oh, by the way, Etro did this on the first day and all that shit. It's mentioned between Serah and Noel in conversation as if it's stuff that they know, which is really good. And that's how you sort of explain. I think you go into where between world bits is when you go to the casino area, and then you start talking about Etro.
The world between the void.
Between the void of whatever it's flipping called, and then there's quite a lot of talk about Etro at that point, and her name's been dropped and stuff like that.
And then of course it's fairly absent for the first part of the game as well. And then the second that you meet Caius and Yeul, oh boy, it ramps up then. Yeah,
and there's loads of exposition, but I don't think at any point I felt like I didn't know what was going on.
Yes,
like. It's like, I get it, right? Okay, so clearly Caius is on one side, Lightning's on the other side, and then there's this sort of like, Etro has fucked everything up, it's created some problem, but it's consequences for Etro's actions.
Yes.
That's really obvious from the way, this wasn't supposed to happen. This was like a paradigm, or paradox, or sort of sideline that was created by actions that happened in the first game. It's really interesting to sort of see that's clearly what this story is about, and it's clearly like, how that impacts some other people. And I mean, I almost think that's probably obviously I've not got to the Lightning Returns yet, but I like this setup, the way the story's being told. But at the same time, like, I think talking about the game as on its own merits, it makes sense in the context of the game, because it's kind of like throw a magnet in a bunch of iron filings and see what happens, or whatever, and so it's just completely sort of like messed everything up. You've just sort of like flipped the table basically. But you're right, it doesn't make for necessarily a good through line. It makes for a bit of a mess. And of course, as soon as you introduce time travel into anything, as much as I love time travel, it just completely stops making any fucking sense whatsoever.
That's the thing. My overall interaction with this game and just reminiscing about it, I could tell you generally what happens. Don't ask me to explain any of it, because it's got time travel in it, and I don't understand time travel. I don't want to be any part of time travel. Let Serah and Noel fuck around with that, and I'll just sit here content in the fact that I still have trouble reading the 24-hour clock. I've got other shit to worry about, Yeah,
that's because you've got American friends. That's what it is. Like, they don't have a 24-hour clock. Apparently, I learned recently. All right, okay, so let's take a break, and we'll be back in a little bit to talk about the plot and a bit more focus on the game itself.
Yes, cool stuff.
See you in a bit. Okay, so welcome back to the podcast after that short break. So, yes, this is the time to dive into 13.2 a little bit more in depth as its own thing. So pretty much this game is set just after Final Fantasy XIII from Serah's perspective. Now, Serah was obviously in Crystal for most of 13, appears quite a bit in the game, but only in flashback, so you don't really get a sense of who Serah is. Played fantastically by Laura Bailey.
Yes.
Now, what's interesting is considering how high profile Laura Bailey is and how long Laura Bailey's been doing work, the fact they got her for the first 13 game for like a few scenes is absolutely amazing to me, considering how fantastic a performance she gives off in this game. So obviously the framework for this is that there's been a bit of time change. Talked about it earlier, but Serah remembers things the way we as the audience remember them happening. Everyone else remembers things slightly differently. Everyone's nipped over to Grand Pulse. They live on a beach. It's New
Bodom. Yeah, it looks exactly like Old Bodom, by the way.
Yeah. Automatically, there's a lot more NPCs to talk to. Nora are here, and they're not as annoying as they were in Final Fantasy XIII.
Because you only speak to them for like 10 seconds.
And LeBrow, I think, is actually a pretty decent character. Probably because of the fact that she hasn't got the most stupid outfits ever. The guy with that fucking stupid zip-up coat, I want to punch him so badly. But they're there, like, filling in for Snow, because Snow's fucked off and is doing whatever the fuck Snow's doing. Apparently, is he looking for Lightning as well? I don't really know. I was so glad Snow wasn't there, because he's such a fucking idiot. Like, I'm sorry. Snow's a bell end. So no, it's really cool. It's an interesting, perspective. Like, it's got that kind of like, you're gonna laugh at this, right? It's very Little Mermaid, isn't it? Like, it's very like, I don't want to be under the sea anymore, Dad. I want to go off on adventure. You know what I mean? And they're by a beach as well. Like Serah is the Little Mermaid. It's true, isn't it? Can you not tell the link? It's there. Like, this clearly this started as a Kingdom Hearts Little Mermaid level, right? That's probably what it was.
So does that make Noel Sebastian or Flounder?
Well, it makes Noel the fucking Sora, because he's got the same fucking outfit with that Keyblade, doesn't he? He does look so Kingdom Hearts, that guy.
He really does.
But like, obviously, the game opens obviously showing you the battle between Lightning and Caius. And then Lightning doing some pretentious speech about the world's destroyed by whatever the fuck's going on here. Who knows? Like some nonsense like that. There's a big sort of like fight with horses and swords and God knows what's going on, which has clearly made a good trailer. And then I think Noel's there and he gets sent back by Lightning. So like instantly, like I think, like I said before, you get that connection of like Noel. You know what Noel wants. You know what Serah wants. Serah wants to find her sister. Noel wants to help Serah find her sister because Noel wants to fix his time or whatever the fuck he wants to do. He wants to, and he's really happy to be surrounded by other people because he's been alone for loads and loads of time. Loads of years. What do you think of Noel?
Oh, you beat me to it. I really liked Noel, actually. I went into 13-2, into that introduction, and him being a bit like, oh, you don't know anything, the world's gonna end. I went in fully expecting to just be like, boy, shut up, in every cutscene. And he grew on me so quickly. I don't really know what it is about Noel that makes him a good character to me, because there's nothing really particularly outstanding about him. But he's very realistic to me. Like, he doesn't understand things that a lot of people take for granted, like emotional friendships, or even just really simple things like, what's a theme park? He's been very... he's very deprived through no fault of his own. And somehow he meshes really well with the strange world that Serah has been thrust into. And I think it is because they go jumping through time. It's not just he's been put into this new situation and he has to become accustomed to it. They both are then like, okay, well, we're not going to stay here. We're going to go through centuries of time by game's end and be thrust into all kinds of situations. And we're just going to have to deal. You've got my back, I've got yours. That's it. I think he and Serah work really well as tandem protagonists. They have really good energy together. They don't bicker, but they don't need to bicker. There's no conflict between them, but there doesn't need to be conflict between them. And I think it works really, really well. The conflict comes from external sources, which I really prefer. I don't like my found family to then have arguments. It's like, Mom, Dad, turn the car around, please, kind of. But yeah, I really liked Noel. What about you?
I really like Noel as well. I think I've felt the same because the first sort of 5 minutes he's there, I was like, oh no, here he goes. He was like, yeah, I come from the future and I'm going to tell you about this. I was like, oh god, this is yes. Come with me if you want to live. Like, yeah, that kind of thing. Wow, it's the Terminator meets the Little Mermaid. Wow, what a... Can you imagine? Crossover. Can you imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger like that underwater, like that? It'd be amazing. It'd be the best thing in the world. Let's make that happen, Disney. No, he turns up. I think it's more the dialogue is a bit cheesy, but then like it goes full on with the dialogue being cheesy because you are in a ridiculous world.
Yeah.
And at first it's like when Noel's chatting shit about I come from the end of time. I was like, oh, fucking hell, we go. Some more Doctor Who bullshit. What's going on? And then very quickly it becomes like, you know what? I'm just going to ignore the complete absurdity of this and just dig into the fact that actually the way he's being makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that guy clearly only lives for his mission. And then, like you say, as time goes on, there's very little... I don't think there's any conflict between Serah and Noel. There's a little tiny bit of like, jovial. Well, there's jovial banter, and they clearly have conflict in the senses that they are friends.
I think the only real conflict between them is when they meet Snow, because Noel thinks Snow's a fucking idiot. And you know what? Fair play to the man. Because someone needed to tell him.
That's why he is our, what was the phrase you used? He's the character we live through. Because it was like, you're a bell-end Snow. Now, we'll get to that bit in a minute. Serah wants to go off and do her Little Mermaid, join the real people, play, sort of like land, go through time with this good-looking stranger. Why not? She buggers off, and then you play as a duo for pretty much the first couple of battles, and then you get access to the monster system. But I will say, it's a really interesting point about this game. So, slightly tangential. I've probably mentioned in the past, I don't know if I have actually, but I'm quite open to playing as various different characters in games. My friend turns around to me about 15 years ago and says he always plays as the women in games. And I tend to quite like that. I think it's quite an interesting way to maybe go off and be a different person. Quite a lot of games will allow you to character create to look like yourself or whatever, or even create your own what you'd like to look like or whatever. I quite like the idea of let's play as a female character. This is cool. Why not? I never really liked playing as say like Princess Peach type characters in Smash Brothers because I just didn't like Princess Peach type characters.
Which is fair.
I thought it was cool running around as Lightning, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to play as Serah. This is going to be really cool because Serah's really cool. But actually, I found myself with both of these characters flipping between both of them.
Really?
Because you can choose who you run as in this game, and I thought both of them, I empathise with perfectly.
Yeah, that's
really,
fair.
really well. And I thought it was quite an interesting one because I normally tend to stick to if I'm playing a game that allows you to do that, I will stick to one person.
I'm the same way. I didn't run around as Noel mostly because I thought his run cycle looked really fucking goofy. That was my biggest thing. I just couldn't get over that at the beginning. Actually, having said all that then, before we forget the other protagonist of this game, you already mentioned that she's very, she's there in flashbacks, but for the most part, she is completely absent in 13. What did you think of Serah?
So in 13-2, I really liked Serah. And I think I know what you're hinting at now, because I think I messaged you saying I prefer Serah to Lightning.
I'd actually forgotten about that, but carry on.
I mean, I haven't played Lightning Returns yet, but Serah is a really good character. I think Laura Bailey does a lot of heavy lifting, because her performance, like I say, is absolutely spectacular in this game. She's just so likable, Serah. I think there's a few points in the game where again, it goes back to that. Obviously, we talk about, I guess, typical female roles and stuff like that. At no point in this game does Serah really. I mean, she looks quote unquote girly. She's got pink hair. She does the kind of the girl run. Her run cycle's a bit goofy as well. The kind of like I can't do it on camera, but the
waving your arms out to the side,
waving your arms out to the side, and that's sort of rubbish. So on the face of it, she looks a traditional magical girl, Sailor Moon-esque looking character. I think it's fair to say, but I don't know. There's just so many moments in this game where Serah is someone to empathise with as an individual. Neither character really feels in a way gendered in this game. They're both very. I don't want to say gender neutral because I don't want to. That term has different meanings and stuff like that. But they're not. They both almost become one in a sense of fulfilling this kind of as a team.
I know exactly
the gender role thing. He doesn't go off. I've got to be the hero and save you. You're my damsel in distress. Obviously, there's a point where they split off and he wants to save her and she wants to save him. It's so balanced. And there's a few moments where Serah is very clever as well. Serah is very they go into one of the flipping towers and she randomly works out how to solve the problem. There's none of this I don't understand because I'm dumb. You need to help me. None of that. I don't think there's any of that in this game at all. There's no sort of. Certainly, there may be a tiny little bit in the narrative of a bit of teasing going on, but I didn't get any of the sense that Noel or Serah will take the piss out of each other for not knowing something. There's a very
they feel like friends. Realistic friends, actually.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably something that I said about 13 generally as well. I really liked the characters in that game because they all felt very realistic. Everyone in that game starts off as an absolute arsehole and then they change and they grow over time, and then by the end of the game I'm like, actually, you're all right people. You were just under a hell of a lot of stress.
Snow's still a dick, Noel, let's not lie.
But 13-2 is very much the same in that these are just people living their lives. And Serah, for all of her, some people can suddenly use magic in this new world, and we come from a giant cocoon which is encased in crystal and just hanging in the sky, and in 500 years is gonna come down and crash and whatever. For all of the fantastical scenarios that they're in, Serah herself is a very realistic character, and so is Noel. I really appreciate the way that they talk naturally, they react to things naturally. I like them both as protagonists, and you're right, they do. It's not that they're a homogenous blob and they become one character, but they are two sides of one very, very balanced character. And even when they split apart, they're still their own people. Like you said, they might want to save each other, but It's because they're friends. Noel wants to save Serah, not because I need to save the woman. It's because he's carrying out a duty that Lightning entrusted him with. And part of Serah's journey is, I want to go off and find my fiancé because he fucked off and no one knows where he is, by the way. Oh, he's cool. I'll get on with my journey now. I think the other thing that really, really works for 13-2 is it would be very, very easy to unwrite the relationship between Serah and Snow in the game and then go, oh, here is someone who is more, dare I say, generically JRPG hero attractive. They're similar in age and they are together for the entire journey. They're an item now, but their interactions are not romantic in any sense. They are just friends on an equal playing level, and I really, really, really appreciate that so much.
So did I, and of course, I mean, I've not got Lightning Returns yet, but it's, I think when we spoke to David Mencken recently about headcanons, I think it might have been the phrase, or fan canons or whatever are good, but like actually, the game, I thought that playing it, you can obviously make up your own if you wanted, they wanted there to be some romance there or whatever. I mean, you could argue that perhaps Noel appears like he's getting jealous of Snow when Snow's behaving the way. But actually, like, what I really like about that is essentially Snow's buggered off and left Serah, his girlfriend, wife, fiance, whatever, on her own, like a dick.
Yeah, all the goodwill that Snow built up by the end of 13 is squandered from here on out, by the way.
Yeah, and Noel, you could read that section when you meet up with Snow, that he's like, oh, well, I treat her better than you. He doesn't actually say that, but you could read it that way. But I don't think it's that, excuse me, the way I read it was that Noel's a lonely character that is just so happy to have friends. And then there's this dickhead in front of him
who's just abandoned.
Really nice person that he's become really good friends with. And he's like, why would you? And it's not, you can read it that way, but it's not overtly like, it's not done in that tropey way of like, there's the love triangle going on.
I mean, I think...
Which I really like.
I think that there's a section at the end of Sunlight, like just before Snow disappears, like Snow actually turns to Noel and is like, oh, you don't like me because you see yourself in me. And even Noel is like, fuck, you're right. Like, and I really, really enjoyed that. Like, yeah, sometimes I fucking dislike people, and it's probably because I see myself reflected in them, or, the traits that I dislike in myself. That's a very human fucking thing to do. Like, they're just really, really good. Snow accepting, of course.
I think the thing is with Snow is that you're supposed to not like him. He's a dickhead, and that is a lot of it.
I mean, like even Nora at the very beginning are like, yeah, he just up and left you. What the fuck is up with that girl?
I mean, that is a fucking dick move.
Oh,
like,
big
considering
time.
the fact that I think Lightning's accidentally gone away and Snow's deliberately gone away off his own volition. It makes him kind of, again, I don't know what happens in Lightning Returns. That'll be a common theme of this episode, but like having a nicer coat does not forgive anything. And they had to go and fuck it up by taking his bandana off as well.
I knew the mullet was coming into play.
The fucking mullet. Oh my god. Some people can pull it off, but he can't.
No, he definitely can't. Snow, I'm sorry, but you're too white of a boy. Like, and I know the mullet is a very white boy hairstyle, but he's too white for it.
I think I might have even said that when we were speaking to Jonas. Like Snow is the whitest character ever. In fact, he's called Snow, the ultimate like white man, isn't he? Like, it's just white privilege should be underneath Snow. Like he just doesn't get it. It's just fucking dick, isn't he?
So other returning characters then, what I mean by that is the rest of the cast, because you said earlier on, and this was a technical truth by the developers, that everyone that was in 13 technically does return in 13 too. So let's see, we have Snow, who we've now spoken about. Noel's a new person. Serah we've spoken about. What did you think of Hope in this game?
I quite liked Hope in this game.
You sound like you regret liking him in this game.
No, it's actually, you know why it is? It's because when I was playing 13 through and I kept slagging Hope off, you were like, leave my boy alone.
Yeah.
And then I got to this game and I'm like, I get why Mole likes Mole.
I liked him in 13 before I liked him in 13 too, I will say that.
Yeah, fair enough. The fact they've had him grow up and be a bit more responsible, and you can see that development of a character. I like how it does that as well. I mean, it's interesting. Again, I have not played Lightning Returns, so I have no idea how the timeline goes, but it's skipped over some of Hope's life because you see him in the future. So you see him as this, like, I guess, late teens, early 20s character.
I think he's meant to be like 22, 23-ish, yeah.
Kind of fully grown leader type person, and you can see that little boy that's grown up. I think that's really cool. You don't see his journey, but you see, again, like you talk about well-written characters, it's believable to me that Hope is now this way.
Absolutely.
If they'd have maybe shown Hope as a young kid trying to be like that, that would have been infuriating, because why does this little kid know how to do all this stuff? But also, it would have been a flip, whereas having the time in the middle to explain why he's now behaving differently, I think it's really good. So no, I did like Hope in this game.
And the thing is, as well, is Hope just immediately believes Serah right away. Like, okay, you say that you remember lightning. I believe you. I don't need you to explain this. I will help you. Hope is just a good person in this game, and he really does try his best. He might not have the right methodology to get to the good intentions, as evidenced by no gods, no masters, no fal'Cie, except for this one that I'm gonna make. Hope, you fucking moron, what were you thinking? But, like, I'm 100% with you. I feel like if we'd seen that interim of him growing up, it wouldn't have hit as well. We needed to, especially considering how many people disliked Hope from the first game, coming back and seeing him having grown up, become, in my opinion, quite a somber young man who just wants to help people. Like, he's been so affected by the journey that he went on that he could have turned out a very, very different person, but he grew up into someone who's like, right, I want to help the people that were with me in whatever way possible I can. I turned out to be a really intelligent young man, and I'm going to use that for the good of mankind. There would have been completely undercut if we'd seen him struggle and, go through the rest of that awkward teenage phase.
You put it far more succinctly than I could put it. I agree. And I also like how they have the Hope has kind of gone off and found his own quote-unquote family. He's not interacting with anyone else from the 13 cast, other than Serah, who's technically in the 13 cast. You see him there with, I think Alyssa is the character's name.
That's right.
Quite a lot. And he's like well respected by a bunch of other people, which is also, shows his growth as well. So I think he's a really sort of a stand-up point in this game. He's understated. He's not, you see Hope quite a few times, but you don't, again... He's
not a main character.
He's not a protagonist in this game,
no.
But it works really well like that, I quite like Hope.
Good.
You're going to ask me about the other characters now, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
All of them.
There's three more from the original cast. Do you remember their names at all, Jack?
Well, I know that Saz turns up right at the fucking end. I'm in my spaceship! Yay!
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Poor Saz. He was done dirty.
He was done so fucking dirty, and the thing is they're all fantastic characters in the first game, but, like, his story in 13 is really, really good. We have a character of colour who has such an emotional arc, he overcomes so much, and then he's just completely written out of the story, except to go, hey, I'm here at the end. And oh my god, I was so confused for the entire, because I was like, okay, I know everyone returns, but, like, where the fuck is Saz?
Except Lightning.
But, like, the thing is like, people mention Saz throughout the game, and, not often, but every time he was mentioned, it's like, okay, where is Saz? And then he turns up right at the end to just kind of exist, and I was like...
I was at the final battle, yeah.
Yeah, I was very confused. And then, I don't know if you've played the DLC.
No.
But Saz's DLC is him stuck in a casino.
Wow.
Yeah, literally, there are 3 pieces of DLC. There is one, I think technically it's meant to be like another alternate ending for Noel. There's one for Lightning, which I didn't actually play through because I don't think I owned it at the time. And then there is Saz's DLC, and it's literally just he is in the Serendipity Casino in, like, the Void or whatever. And the gameplay is you play poker and a different card game to win tokens to get Daj back. That is it. That is the DLC.
That is fucking weird.
It was boring. The gameplay, like, is you're just gambling. Like, okay, I can do this anywhere else. It was insulting to the character and the legacy of the character, and also it just felt so fucking out of place. Yeah, bad job with that one, guys.
Does he at least have a bikini as well?
No,
DLC.
It doesn't.
That was DLC as well. That's when you were saying DLC, the first thing I'm thinking of is the bikinis. In that game.
Some of the outfit choices were a bit strange. I will give you that.
Yeah, I just think it's because I have the boxed version of the Xbox 360 version. I've captured footage for it. It's worth noting. Actually, this game is I bought an Xbox One to play this game because it's far easier to capture than it is on PS3, which is really difficult to capture. So you can still download the outfits on the store, and the top one's the bikini. And I thought, okay, the infamous bikini. So yeah, no, very interesting. Yes, there's a few more characters left, isn't there? There's 2 more left, isn't there? to talk about.
Fang and Vanille. How are we feeling about their very brief appearance?
I quite like that. I like that scene. I think that scene works really well, actually. It's actually a bit of a shame that we don't see more of them.
Yeah.
But no, I do like their scene. I think it was really cool that they turned up in that sort of
and
brief
helped her.
period.
I liked it as well, actually.
Yeah. What I liked about it is that I worked it out because there's a bit you're running down the beach and you're going to the sort of like forest area next to the beach. And you hear this voice, and you're like, "Who is it?" And it's like, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Oh my god, it's going to be Fang and Vanille. It's going to be Fang and Vanille." It was. And I thought that's a fantastic payoff. Yeah. I really liked that. But no, I think Saz was sort of done dirty in this game.
No, absolutely.
Because he was such a good character in the. We talked about before how there wasn't really a good. What was the phrase you used for the character? Person you lived through?
Oh, audience stand-in.
Yeah, a standing character. You could argue that, like, playing this game, being a bit older, Saz probably fulfills that role as being a guy in his 30s, looking at all these teenagers going, "What the fuck are you doing, teenagers?"
He got so bored with Gen Zs that he just went to gamble all his life savings away.
Yeah, that's literally it. But yeah, that seems a bit of a shame. Yeah, what the frustrating part about Saz, and I don't know whether this is explained with the time stuff, is that you've got Hope, who was, like, younger and has grown into a fully grown man. And then you've got Saz with Daj, and Daj looks the fucking same.
Yeah,
like
Daj just remains like 5 years old forever. Don't worry about it. Also,
it just
now that we're on the topic, I'm getting heated because I just remembered things and I'm pissed off again now. Okay, so like the whole game is you going through time gates and like we're now a few decades into the future, we're now a century into the future. The end of the game is 500 years after the events of the previous game, right? And
yeah.
this is its own fucking thing because by the time that we get there, it's like, okay, well, once everything's resolved, this is the time we're going to live in. So it's like, okay, well, never mind all those people that were alive 500 fucking years ago. It's just me and Noel and Hope against the world. Whatever, that's its own thing. Hope manages to come to the future by creating a future bubble or whatever and gets in. Fine, whatever. How the fuck did Saz end up in serendipity?
Yeah.
And how the fuck did he then come out at 500 years in the future? And by the way, what about Snow and time? I hate time travel plots so much, Jack. They piss me off so fucking bad. I'm up here now. I'm up here.
So let's talk about time travel a little bit, because I love time travel as a concept, but it works really well when they don't make it too big a deal.
Yeah.
So Back to the Future, I'm assuming you like Back to the Future.
I'm not sure if I've ever watched it in its entirety. I know I've seen like the ending 20 minutes, but I don't know if I've seen the whole thing.
I mean, I love a bit of Back to the Future, and of course, time travel. Let's dip into time travel, because I thought it was quite interesting while playing this game, because this is not really a mainline game, but time travel doesn't really appear in Final Fantasy very much, but it feels like it does. And I think the reason why it feels like it does is because there's loads of flashbacks that you play through. So it feels like you're traveling through time. Obviously, you've got 5, 6, and 7 have all got prolific flashbacks. You've got the ATEs in 9. There's lots of flashbacks to Dagger when she's younger. 8 has time travel, obviously.
Yeah.
And 1 has time travel, which makes no fucking sense. But it does. As soon as you bring time travel into a game, it does make no sense. But this is the first time where
it's featured so heavily.
So it's built into the mechanics of the way the story's told, because obviously you've got Final Fantasy 1, the story is that it's a time loop, you've got to stop a time loop and, kill Chaos in the past. He sends himself into the past to view. So you go, you know what, it's bollocks, so well, let's go with it. Final Fantasy VIII, it's a big part of how the story's told, in the sense of like, actually what's good about that is that it's Elone trying to change the past, and by trying to change the past, she teaches Squall about his past and he learns and moves on. Really good stuff, right? Like that. And the time compression stuff is just like they're going into another world. It doesn't really fucking matter. This, it builds the dynamic of the game. You can use the time travel to change the structure of the story, and mechanically it impacts the game. So you can go back, and I think it's really cool that you can actually go back and change parts in the game to take alternate paths. So there's a part when you're in the area, I forget the name of it, with Snow, and there's a big fucking flam thing.
Yes.
And you have to go back through a different gate to another future, another past, to go and kill a fucking dragon, because that dragon was scaring all the flans. And then if you kill the dragon, it doesn't scare all the flans, and they go to a different place, and then the flans smaller in the future. I really like that.
Yeah.
So actually, my take on time travel, because I agree with you, in science fiction stories, you've got to be very careful. It works really well if you stick to your mechanics. I'm going to get my one of the episode out of the way. Stargate, right? Does it very, very well with its stuff, because it sticks to its rules. So the audience, it will go, right, we can only do this if these circumstances work. As an audience, you can work out what the mechanical puzzle is. In this game, I think the mechanical puzzle side of it works pretty well. with the time travel story stuff, you just got to go, you know what, I fucking don't care, it's bollocks. That's the only way to really enjoy it, I think.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of games that do that with time travel. They will use it as a mechanical device. The best one ever is Day of the Tentacle, which is my favourite game ever made. Point-and-click adventure game where you effectively you're in the same mansion area in 3 different parts throughout history, and you can put items in the past. So you need some vinegar in the past, right? So in order to get some vinegar in the past, you've got to put some wine in an ice cooler in the present for it to be 200 years into the future, and then put it through the time travel machine to get it to the past.
God.
Fucking brilliant. Absolutely. Like, it's just complete nonsense puzzling. So, like, Life is Strange is another one. You can rewind time. So actually, I like the time mechanics in this game.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. The time travel story stuff is just complete fucking bollocks.
Yeah.
And I tried not to let it bother me, because I'm like, you know what, doesn't make any fucking sense. Why are they 500 years here, 200 years there? At the end of the day, it didn't really need to be over such a long period of time that they travel. It was just complete. Why? It's just to put a number. Oh yeah, we're 500. That'll do.
I think
okay.
The only reason that it needed to be any number at all was it needed to match up with the date that Noel says that Cocoon falls and destroys the world. That's it. Pick an arbitrary number for that, I suppose. But I've just remembered, Jack. We talked about the recurring characters. We didn't speak about the new ones.
We didn't speak about the new ones. Apart from Noel, we didn't.
No. So introduced in this game were new characters, Caius Ballard and Padgen Su Yeul. What did you think of these 2 interesting individuals?
Fantastic that Final Fantasy XIII series has finally got a decent fucking villain with Caius Ballard. Because, my God, is that guy cool as fuck. I'm sorry. The purple-haired antagonist... represent. Normally, I'm all about the purple-haired protagonist, but purple-haired antagonist. There we go.
So what I'm hearing is Caius Jack Kuja sandwich.
Jesus Christ. I'd certainly like to sit and eat sandwiches with. What the fuck am I talking about? I think Caius is a good villain. He's got a very cool design. Mm-hmm. He's got a very Soul Blade sword. He looks very much like Siegfried or a Nightmare from Soul Blade.
Yeah, he does.
Soul Calibur. And Liam O'Brien's voice fits him fucking perfectly. Mm-hmm. He's a great antagonist. There's loads of Caiuses through time. And obviously he's paired up with Yeul.
Yeah.
Yeul was, to me, Yul's a bit of a non-character, though.
Yeah, my notes here, I've written down and underlined, who the fuck is Yeul? Because we don't know.
Yeul is very much in this game like Serah was in fucking Final Fantasy XIII. She's just like, an objective, yeah. And it's a little bit frustrating that, because we don't get to see who Yeul really is. But then again, I think that the story's trying to tell they want Yeul to be able to have a future.
Yeah.
I think what fucks them up is the fact that I think the idea of it is that Etro felt sorry for Yeul because some bollocks about how she needed to live forever, but every time she was reborn, she's a different person. I think that's what fucks it up, because if it was the same person, it would make her a little bit more easy to empathise with. You know what I mean?
I disagree. I
really
don't mind. I think the whole thing between Yeul constantly being reborn and looking the same way again is the very first Yeul. I think one of her prophecies came true or something like that, and she was using the eyes of Etro, and Etro felt sorry for her, so she decided to allow. The thing is a lot of the stuff that gets fucked up in this game is because Etro had a human emotion and just didn't do the right fucking thing about it. She got involved, and anyone who's ever dealt with any god ever is okay, well, don't listen to the prayers, but don't get involved, right? Because you mess everything up.
Bruce Almighty, Etro Almighty.
Yeul is, she's a different character each time she comes back, but she's kind of being tortured eternally by God because God thinks this is the right thing to do, and Caius is the one who gets the brunt of it. Now, Caius is a really interesting character to me. I think he's alright as a villain in this, but it took me a really, really long time to understand who the fuck he was. I think the first time I fought him in... was it Urba? I remember I sucked hard at that fight. I really did not do a good job of it. And then by the end of it, I was like, yeah, but who the fuck is this dude? What the fuck? It took a while for me to get to understand what was going on with Caius and why he was so antagonistic without, really having any reason to be, seemingly. But, I got there in the end. My thoughts on him changed by the end of Lightning Returns, because he does return... Caius returns as well.
Spoiler alert. I'm glad Caius returns in Final Fantasy XIII.
But we'll get to my thoughts on Caius in Lightning Returns at a different time. Overall...
oh God, no, I'm going to wait for that as well.
Overall, I don't think he's a bad antagonist. I don't think he's a villain. I think he's just an antagonist doing what he thinks is the right thing to do and to, alleviate his own suffering and Yeul's suffering primarily is. But I think his main motivation essentially being dead wife syndrome. The person that I love the most keeps dying and I can't do anything about it and that makes me sad. Kind of weakens him a bit. I don't know. I have very complicated feelings on Caius. I think he's cool, but I also think he's a bit convoluted for no real reason.
It's a little bit like, because the villains were so dog shit in Final Fantasy XIII that like as soon as like one that's okay comes out, it makes him feel that much better.
I'm trying to decide whether or not I'd rather go back to Bartandalus or Caius again. I'm having a hard time. I think I'd rather scream, honestly.
I think Caius is a pretty good antagonist for the series. I think if we were going to do foreshadowing a villain list of some form, I would punt to say that Caius should be the main villain for the 13 series. Like, as a person to talk about. I've not done Lightning Returns yet. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I disagree, but I disagree for each game is the thing.
Yeah, I see, right.
It's really, again, there's no through line. It's complicated. I think, honestly, this is a design perspective rather than a characterization perspective, but my main issue with Caius is, why the fuck did they give him Bahamut again when we already had Bahamut with Fang? There's this whole fucking thing in the data logs about how, he incarnate summoned Bahamut and that killed him, but Etro took pity on him and fucking took him back. God damn it, Etro, stop helping. But, like, he turns into Bahamut at the end of the game, 3 Bahamuts even at the end of the game. And all I could think of was, number 1, why? Number 2, if your whole theme is like, well, we already had Bahamut, is the thing. Like, why have you just given him arbitrarily to a different character with no explanation for it? Number 2, if your whole, like, character motivation is eternal rebirth and how it fucking sucks, give him Phoenix. And number 3, and I'm not really considering this so much of a spoiler for Lightning Returns, because there's been, like, mini through lines. There is so much random Norse mythology in these games, right? You have Odin, you have Ragnarok, you have Hecatoncheir, we have Fenrir in this one. In Lightning Returns, they introduce a concept of Yggdrasil. Like, you have the World Tree. Keep him with the Norse mythology. Give him fucking Nidhogg. Give him the World Tree Eater, for fuck's sakes. What are you people doing?
Give him a hammer as opposed to a big fuck-off sword. Yeah, that would be good. Like, imagine if he had a hammer and he was like Thor with thunder. That'd be cool, wouldn't it?
I'm so glad I've got that off my chest, because that has been eating me alive for 5 fucking years. They should have given him Nidhogg, or they should have given him Phoenix. That's the hill I'll die on. Square Enix, you don't know fuck about your characters.
Yeah, but they've got around it by introducing 7 million different versions of Bahamut, didn't they? So, like,
Jack,
Bahamut Zero.
That blows so fucking bad. Caius is Red Bahamut and Garnet Bahamut and Topaz. They can blow me from behind upside down. I don't fucking care. I thought it was such a dumb final battle. Like, why are you Bahamut and why are you 3 of them? Fuck
that
off.
Let's go off on a tangent. That was a dumb part of the game where you fight Caius.
There's no lead up to it. It's just like, by the way, here you go. Fuck off.
I like the Caius fight. I thought Caius's fight was cool. And then
Caius's fight is cool.
But then you have this random, like, oh, by the way, here's my dragon pet. And here's a green one, and here's a red one, and here's a diamond one. And it was just like,
genuinely
what the
baffling.
Fuck am I playing?
That design choice did not make sense to me.
It's like a bit of, it's like almost like, what's it?
We could have had Dark Phoenix if they wanted to go. Oh, I've just made myself angry again.
It's like Necron at the end of Final Fantasy IX, isn't it?
Comes
like,
out of nowhere.
by the way, I'm buddy. Whereas, like, fucking, like, this one is just like, here's my Dragon Ball!
And, like, genuinely, the reason why Caius has Bahamut, or, like, can turn into Bahamut, you have to dig in the data logs, and it's like, 2 sentences. It's such a, come on, make it make sense.
It's because there's a quota they've got to get every summon into each game or something. Oh, we've got Odin.
Yeah, but Odin's only there for, like, 2 seconds.
We don't want Fang to be in this. Let's fucking,
They decided to, like, some people down on Grand Pulse now have magic, but, like, Serah and Noel had never had a summon. Ever. So, like, why are we for fuck's sake, let's move on, because I can tell my blood pressure's going to rise about this. How did you feel about the ending of this game?
You know how I felt about the ending of this fucking game.
Because, listeners, I got a text from Jack, which was pretty much just like, huh? What just happened? And I knew exactly which part he had just seen.
So, spoiler alert, Serah fucking dies at the end of this game.
Yes, she does.
It shocked me. How I've managed to avoid the spoiler for that for the last 15 years nearly. I honestly was shocked. It hit me like a fucking ton of bricks, because the whole point of this game is that you're going to go and try and find Lightning again. You meet Lightning again. She sends you on your way, and then you fulfill the, you save Cocoon or whatever the fuck it is, whatever planet we're on this week in 500 years in the future, and Hope gets his fucking super duper city, flies it through. That's solved. Caius dies. Yeul, I think, dies. Noel fulfills his mission. You sat there. It's all good, and then Serah just fucking collapses. And then the game ends. And it's like, the fuck? What the fuck? Now, obviously, I can go... I've been waiting to play Lightning Returns until we thought we'd talk about this before I played Lightning Returns. But, like, imagine waiting for this. If you played this at the time. Like, imagine if he had to wait for the next game. Like, how mind-blowing that would have been.
I'd have been pissed, honestly. One
of the best deaths in the series. Like, it just comes out of nowhere. You're not expecting it. It's probably as shocking as the Aerith death is in Final Fantasy VII. I don't think it's quite as iconic, but it's certainly as shocking.
Absolutely, because it comes out of nowhere.
Where the fuck did this come from? And of course, it sets up the next game as like,
The thing is that there has been precedent set throughout the entire game, and Yeul has the Eyes of Etro, and we now know that Serah has, and Yeul keeps dying because of this. Like, I think Noel says to her at several points, like, you feeling okay? You good? And she's like, yeah, I'm good. I'll tell you. And, the thing is it stops being such a concern that Noel forgets about it, Serah forgets about it, and then you forget about it. And it only comes back into play right at the very end, as it happens. For me, I knew that Serah died. I just didn't know when. I hadn't ever seen, like, the full ending before. I think I'd only ever seen, like, GIF sets of her, like, collapsing or whatever. And I was just like, oh, she probably kicks it, because, why wouldn't you? And I found myself in every single new area remembering that GIF set and the coloration of it. And I was like, okay, well, I need to be looking for, like, a kind of sunset-y area. And there's no sunset-y areas. And, of course, the more I play, the more I'm hooked into the game, and I forget the external things that I've seen. And then by the end of it, they come out of this final paradox and they touch down, and I go, I recognize those colours. And then she dies, and I'm like, holy fuck, that was really good. I really enjoyed the sudden jarring end of 13-2 because it really is, you've saved the world. It was a bit, this isn't great because, you have to kill Caius. And he has the heart of the goddess. And you've been told, like, maybe if you kill the heart of the goddess, that's not going to go so well for you. But I'm sure it'll be fine with the heroes. And then, for a moment, it really does look like everything's okay. And then it's not just everything isn't okay. It's you have undone the laws of physics and everything is fucked. Like, good shit. Good narrative shit.
Really, really good narrative shit. And of course, like, it ties in with what we were saying before about the time travel shit doesn't matter because it's just fucked, isn't it? It's an incredible ending, I think, as well. I think you get a choice between whether you can kill Caius or not. I don't know if it changes necessarily what happens in the narrative, but you kind of...
Which did you pick?
Oh, I decided to kill the fucker.
Oh, okay. I decided to spare him.
No, fucking die, motherfucker. You're a prick.
No,
it's just interesting how I was just picking up Caius has been amazing. And you saying it was ridiculous. Yeah. You're like, you stay alive. I'm like, die, motherfucker.
And then I'm the one who spared him. No, functionally, there is no difference between those two things. I really liked that QT. Like, a lot of the QTs I thought were a bit like, you're doing this just for the sake of having buttons in the cinematics.
Yeah,
but that final...
it was the era. Yeah,
it really was, wasn't it? But that final QTE I actually thought really worked well because you only have, like 7 seconds to decide. They're ticking down. Are you going to kill him or are you going to spare him? You have to make that choice immediately. Because I spared him, Caius takes the sword and kills himself with it. Nothing changes. This is a foregone conclusion. And for the most part, for a QTE, when nothing actually changes, depending on which one you choose, that's kind of a weak design philosophy, in my opinion. I liked it in this case.
Yes, I agree with both the things you just said, because I think that QuickTime event...
So 2010s.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it's almost like I'm surprised there's no Final Fantasy XIII-2 3D as well. I mean, maybe that's what, not just the QuickTime event side of it, the choice side of it. Like, when you're given a choice in a game, like the big one we talked about before, spoilers for the end of Life is Strange, you can choose 2 endings in that game. Expedition 33 came out this year. There are 2 endings in that game, and you have to choose between the 2 of them. It is very much a... Oh, okay. Whereas in this instance, like, yeah, it does feel narratively like no matter what choice you make, the outcome's going to be the same.
Yeah.
Which ties into that kind of cyclical kind of thing. And what I think is interesting about Caius, and probably why I like him, other than the fact that I think his design's cool, is that you beat Caius without beating him, because there's a moment where Caius realizes something, where Noel's trying to get through to him, is like, what the fuck are you doing, you bellend? And then I can't remember the exact dialogue, but you're on the beach bit with the waves coming in, and you turn around and you're like, "But Caius, you don't have to do this. This is wrong. You're fucking it up." And he realizes, like, so I think he realizes something along the times of like, basically Yeul just wanted to be happy or something, and by him basically chasing through and doing all this, he stopped that from happening, and he's like, "Oh fuck." So there's a moment of where like Caius's whole world falls out from below him. So regardless of whether he actually dies or not, Noel beats him. That's the feeling I got from that scene anyway. Maybe I've got it completely wrong.
See, no, I agree with you up until a certain point. I feel like, yeah, Caius does have something of a realization, but then he doubles down on it. And I think that's what makes him an effective antagonist in this situation.
That's what I mean, is that no matter what, even if he learns the errors of his ways or whatever, that was his destiny. He was always going to die.
Caius is... he should be the visual definition of sunk cost fallacy, as far as I'm concerned. He has made up his mind. That is a self-fulfilling prophecy. He is going to put the hours in. God damn it, also help him.
He's Macbeth, yeah. Like,
God, you had to bring Shakespeare back, didn't you?
Macbeth is fucking fabulous. Well, yeah, he's a tragic Shakespearean hero, or Shakespearean character, not hero, but he's not Prospero. Well, hey, Prospero redeemed himself and left the island. So, yeah, I fucking love The Tempest. Anyway.
What did you think of the endings, Jack? And how many did you get?
I don't think I got too many of them. So actually, I might be coming at this quite dry. The only ending I got was the ending.
The regular one.
Serah dies, and then post-credits, lightning is in stone or something.
Yeah, that's the proper ending.
And the reason I left it without looking at other endings was because I don't mind if you spoil them now, but like I was going to go through and play Lightning Returns afterwards eventually. So I'm not, by all means, please talk. Don't spoil Lightning Returns for me, but, but feel free to talk about the other endings in this game.
No, absolutely. Like, I think there's 7 or 8 of them overall, and I think for the most part they're just like, oh, if something else happened in this situation, you know, things would be slightly different. I know there's a couple of like goofy ones. There's one where Serah and Noel go back to all the Flans that are holding up or like eating the crystal, and she gets so pissed off at them that she screams at them, and they all like, I'm sorry, Miss Farron, and they go away, and that's it. That's the ending. Like, it's literally just like a joke ending, but it exists.
I'm here for that. That's good.
I know there's one where I think it's like old Titans or something wake up and start waging another war again, and like it kind of ends with Serah and Noel standing there like, oh, and you know, then we had a whole new thing to fucking worry about, and it was a bit like, okay, interesting, but whatever. There were 2 endings that they're called paradox endings because they're not the true ending, right? And there were 2 that really, really appealed to me. Well, maybe appeal is the wrong word for one of them. So at the very end of the game, before you like go into the final dungeon, Alyssa hands you an artifact, and she's like, haha, have fun with this. And then it turns out that like she was an agent of Caius's or whatever, because she wanted to, like, she was a bit evil. Anyway, in this paradox ending, Snow comes out of nowhere and is like, you're under arrest. Fuck you. By the way, Hope, you're going to be assassinated in 3 days' time. Hey, Serah, hop on my motorbike with me, and we're going to drive off into the sunset, because we've got shit to do before we can find lightning. And then the game ends, and I was like, what the fuck did I just watch?
I'm so glad I didn't get that ending.
Genuinely, I think you should watch it just because it's so, like, this could be a whole different extra sequel in its own right. It's so fucking weird.
Make it happen, Square.
Please don't.
Well, and then there's time jump, and it goes through to Valisthea and Ben Stars. There we go. Mention episode. Can you imagine Snow meeting Clive Rossfield?
Please
Can you imagine?
Please no.
At the end of Final Fantasy 16, like Clive's there dying, and then the motorbike drives in. Like...
You want to ride, sweetheart?
Yeah.
The other paradox ending, which I genuinely thought was really compelling in its own right. So there's a scene, I think, right before you go back into the regular world. You're in, like, Bodom very far in the future, and the world looks like it's dead. Like, there's no more sea. It's where the dream lightning is, and she offers, like, oh, you could stay here and things will be all right again or whatever. It's not if you answer yes to staying with her. It's if you do something else. But essentially, Serah decides to stay in this, like, barren wasteland of a future, and Noel is there, and Yeul is there, and the 3 of them together are kind of like, well, this world is absolutely fucked, but maybe there are other people. Let's go find them. And I thought that was really genuinely compelling in its own right, because, like, yeah, this is a paradox and this part of the world shouldn't exist, but also there could still be something here. Like, genuinely, I walked out of 13-2 having watched that, being like, I want to write, like, an 80,000 word fanfic about this, and then I just gave up immediately, so... But, genuinely, I would highly recommend going through and watching the Paradox endings, just because some of them are so fucking goofy, and some of them might actually really make you, like, go, this could be a good thing in its own right.
I could even make a list feature for secrets in games. No, that's cool. I do like the multiple ending things in games. I think it's quite a cool little Easter egg type thing. You know, it's almost like the Marvel post credit scene stuff going on. And a lot of them, like I mean, they went overboard with them. Well, you had to get to the end of the movie to feel what the next thing was. But sometimes they throw jokes in, like the Guardians of the Galaxy ones. Howard the Duck turns up in it or something, which is hilarious. You know, it's just like, oh, it's Howard the Duck, lol. You know, like that. That sort of. I'm here for that kind of shit where it's just like it is a bit of an in-joke, right?
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Nier games and the games that Nier spins off from that you talked about before. Yeah, Drakengard. Yeah, it reminds me of them where there's like 8 million different endings and stuff like that. And it's quite an interesting thing with games because the whole idea is that you're affecting the narrative in some way and you get a different ending depending on what you do. I think it's quite cool. It reminds me a little bit of a game called I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which was a story by Harlan Ellison. And Harlan Ellison was a revered sci-fi writer. And, of course, he was pretty much like, I'm not really into games, but obviously he understood the significance of it back in the 90s. Basically, his point with narrative design and stuff like that was that there are about 5 different endings in the game, but none of them were supposed to be a good ending. They were just less bad in his game because his story was supposed to be, you know, it was a very, very cynical view of man and about nuclear destruction and stuff like that, right? Mankind, I should say. And he... Basically, the game, they were like, well, you've got to be able to win. And he was like, well, okay, we'll make it so that you lose less, you know? And the ending in that game is still not the best. Basically, like, most of the characters die. One of them sort of survives. So it's a really interesting kind of take on that. And I like that in games. I think it's really cool when it's brought in. Because it's almost like a sort of way of storytelling that only games can do. Yeah. Because, I mean, you can kind of have, like, a different end to a comic book series or whatever, but they become different canons at that point. In a game... you can kind of you know what I mean? It's almost unique to that storytelling method, which I quite like. So that's me going off on a tangent there. So that's what we do best. So yeah, I have got no answer. From what you described there, they all sound as interesting to me as the other ones, and it'll be probably worth me watching them now.
It's one of those things of like, I mean, I presume they knew which was going to be the true ending before they like started writing the game, but also it makes me wonder, like, what was the criteria to carry on? Did they have the idea of Lightning Returns first and then need a way to get there? Or, you know, did they just kind of make it up on the fly? Yeah. I don't know. And that also then channels into, but why did 13 need 2 sequels? Why did this one need a sequel? It's all very confusing to me, Jack. I'm a very confused person in this world.
I think it's because they spent so much money on that fucking engine. They were like, we've got to make some money back from this. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so that leads, I think, us on to voice performances a little bit more, just to touch on a bit much. But we'll talk about Lightning first, because... she's not really got a look in this game, or
no, she really hasn't. Sorry, Lightning.
Obviously, Ali Hillis returns in this game. I think technically, I don't know if she got top billing or not, but like she appears in that trailer. Lightning has probably about as much screen time in this game as Serah does in Final Fantasy XIII.
Yeah,
but I quite what do you think of Lightning in this game?
Ooh. I wasn't prepared for this question. No. It's really complicated because I don't know if I really got this across earlier talking about the narrative of like, oh, everything Etro touches, like, she fucks up. I like the concept of divine actions have equally divine consequences. But I also feel like, considering the way that 13 ended, and it's a very good ending, it almost felt very unfair that Lightning suddenly was forced into this new role and she had no choice. And the biggest issue that I take, and this definitely starts here and then moves on further into Lightning Returns. Again, we'll talk about that more when we get there. But she doesn't feel like Lightning anymore. Right. She's turned into something else. And it's very disappointing in that regard, because I love Lightning. I want Serah to get her sister back, but she's never going to get Lightning back the way that she should. It's one of those, you've been changed by the hero's journey. You can never return home at the end of your adventure, right? It's not just you can't return home at this point. It's you can't return home, and also you've been co-opted by a god to do her bidding. You can never leave this position. You have to protect me for the rest of your, I don't know, unlife at this point or whatever. Serah's never going to get Lightning back, whether or not she succeeds in finding her again. So in the one hand, I kind of like it. from a narrative tragedy perspective, because I'm all about a tragic ending. But on the other hand, it's very unfulfilling. What about yourself?
Yeah, I was a bit frustrated at first because I was like, it's not lightning anymore. And I'm always a bit like skeptical when you have that kind of storytelling where the main character leaves. But a lot of time in TV shows, like when the lead actor's off having a baby or doing another series or is ill or something like that, and they're not in it for like a series, and the whole story is we've got to find that person, which is kind of what this game is. Star Wars is probably the most prolific one, where essentially like Luke Skywalker doesn't turn up in the Force Awakens until the very end, and then in the next movie he's not like people want Luke Skywalker to be. So that's something that's I won't go into that because I have controversial opinions about that. But like the point is that I think I agree with you. It's frustrating because she's not going to find her sister again the way she wants, because she's eventually Lightning's going to have her own life in a weird sort of way. She's not going to return to the way she was before. But it does make sense narratively. It's not lazy. It makes sense that Lightning has. So I was a bit okay with it because of that, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
It was like, okay, I actually quite like that Lightning. I think I actually have written a note here. What the fuck's happened to Lightning? And the note I have is that like it makes sense that she's sort of like setting an example for them. She's giving them instructions, right? You need to go and do this. You need to go and do that. Take some responsibility, as opposed to being the apathetic person she was in the first game, where she's sort of given up and everything like that. And I think that makes a bit more sense because it's Serah, and that's what she's more likely to be.
See, that's the thing. You say like apathetic, but the point is by the end of 13, she'd undone that. She had changed as a character. Like, I don't really have a problem with like, suddenly you've God's given you a new job, whatever. Fine. But again, it just undoes everything that 13 ended on. Like, it undoes her characterization. It undoes the catharsis of winning at the end of that. If there was precedent prior, it would have been fine. But everything that we've been taught about in that game is once you have become l'Cie, there are two endings. You turn into Crystal or you turn into a zombie, right? There is no third option. But because like the through line in the first game is we can believe in anything, we can make a miracle happen, and the power of that belief and, everything that they do actually causes a miracle to happen. It's unprecedented. This has never, ever happened before. And now all of a sudden we hear the gods have been involved with shit before. Like, here's one person who keeps getting reborn. Also, Caius has the heart of the goddess because of some shit that he did, like, thousands of years ago. The precedent needed to be there from the very beginning, which is why the trilogy as a whole frustrates me so much, because it needs that through line. I'm so sorry in advance, not just to you, but also to the listeners, because this will be something I harp on about when we do our Lightning's Returned episode as well. It's so frustrating to me.
I'd imagine I might have similar opinions once I've got to the end of that, because I've not got to the end of the trilogy yet. So I'm sort of like looking at this more as a sort of game on its own, because I like it as a piece of. I mean, I think it works almost separate to what you've said, because it could almost be its own story. Anyway, this game could work on its own.
That's the thing. All of the games I think work very well as standalones, but they have opted to work as a trilogy, and I have to live with that.
What I think I mean is that this could have been a Final Fantasy. I'm not saying like the online Final Fantasy XIV, but this could have been the next mainline Final Fantasy. And because you didn't necessarily need the history with Lightning to tell Serah and Noel's story, you needed to know that this person's lost their sister. Quite similar to, say, like, Alone and Squall in Final Fantasy VIII, or Jecht and Tidus in Final Fantasy X. You tell their relationship through the story. It was,
you're right.
The point I'm making is that Serah, and in a way it could have worked if they had left out some other sort of, or not retconned it, or whatever you want to say, it could have worked with just Serah's story in isolation, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we already spoke earlier about how this one completely scales back on the concept of like new terminology. The fal'Cie don't have to be the fal'Cie. The l'Cie, the only person who's a l'Cie in this game is Snow, and even that is just like, oh, that's weird. Anyway, like, I completely agree with you. I'd never considered that before. This game could have been a mainline entry in its own right, but it's not, and we have to live with that.
So yeah, I think we should probably talk a little bit about the slight difference mechanically from we touched upon it in the intro a bit, about how this was essentially the same game as Final Fantasy XIII mechanics wise, but what it does better is it removes the whole upgrade your weapons bullshit that I hated in the first game. That's not there at all. You can upgrade your weapons. You can upgrade them, but like, it's so obvious what you need to do, right? And of course you get inundated with monsters in this game. Now this basically becomes like a bit of a Pokemon or Digimon type thing, where essentially the monster that you capture, and you can pretty much just capture them as you go, becomes your third party member. What did you think of that? Because I really liked it.
I wasn't expecting to enjoy it, and then I ended up really enjoying it. I don't know if that was because one of the first monsters that I caught was a healer, and it was the Catchy. It was the little cat in a like bucket. It was really cute. And then I found out that you could give them accessories, and that was it. I was sold after that.
It is cool, isn't it? And it's I mean, I'd imagine it's probably quite a monster. I don't know. I've never played Monster Hunter games, but I'm sure it's not necessarily a unique thing they used. But I think it works really well to have that third thing locked in a deck, because it became less confusing to the paradigms at that point.
I think something that really worked for me, and this is something that I don't say very often, I think the thing that worked best is that there's no explanation for it. It just is.
No,
and that
they're just there.
somehow really, really worked for me. Like, why are they battling with a monster? You know what? Don't worry about it. They just are.
So it'll be right.
Yeah.
And it got a little bit of persona in it as well, because you can like mix them all together. And what I do like about this game, and it's something that I know. So it's got a little bit of reminded me a little bit of Final Fantasy VIII, because I think I talked about Final Fantasy VIII before, about how you can get very far in 8 without understanding the battle system, but if you don't understand it at the end of the game, you're fucked. This is very similar, because like it's not got that annoying thing that 13 had, where every single battle's a bottleneck, and every boss is a really big bottleneck. The only bottleneck in this game, bearing in mind I played it on easy, is the end boss. And it almost feels like, you can do what you fucking want throughout the game, but to do the end boss, you have to understand the battle system. And I quite like that as a concept, because it reminded me a lot of the earlier Final Fantasies of like the end boss is the fucker you have to beat, and it's always hard. In this instance, it worked really well because, of course, in order to beat Caius as Bahamut, I know you hate him being Bahamut, but you had to do the whole Sentinel thing when he's attacking you, and then when he's in a different form, you can attack him back. I liked that as just the final boss, not every single other boss. And I think it works really well, because at that point in the game, you don't have to go and then grind. You can just pick all the monsters you've got up together and just throw them together in a pot and make a cake. And then all of a sudden you've got a super monster that can like do what the fuck it wants. I really, really like that,
See, the thing that made me laugh the hardest about the monster system is, so you said you'd never played any of the DLC entry points, right? It's kind of a shame, because Snow's DLC entry is a Colosseum battle, and it's fucking hilarious. You can fight Snow, because why wouldn't you? And I think even like Noel is like, this is your fiance, are you gonna beat the shit out of her? And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. And then Serah's like, no, I can take it, come on, let's fucking go, let's go, man. Like, it's genuinely hilarious. Jill Nabat is there for some reason.
Oh, of course she is.
Omega is there, the robot Omega. And I think there's a couple of other ones as well, but those...
Ultros turns
Oh, that's
up,
right, Ultros is there, and I think he tries flirting with Noel, who's like, what the fuck is going on? It's, Ultros is Ultros. But the funniest thing that I found about this DLC is, obviously, you can see in battle screens, like, when you can actually obtain a monster, right? It says tameable or unobtainable. You can tame Snow as a monster. If you beat him, and he's a really fucking difficult boss, I did have a go. I think, like, he got one hit on both of them, and that was it, game over, and I was like, you know what, I'm good. I don't need to be doing this with my life. But I think Snow is, like, supposed to be the best Sentinel unit in the entire game. You can have him along in your party for the rest of the game, you just gotta beat him in the Colosseum first. But yeah, seeing Snow with the word tameable by his name was, I wasn't prepared for that one, Jack.
Interesting thoughts could be taken from that, couldn't they? No, that's quite cool, though, isn't it? I mean, obviously, basically, narratively, you could describe that by, like, they stick with Snow, they choose to take him with him. Does he keep his black coat? Because he needs to keep his black coat.
Yeah, it's his 13-2 outfit, so he... Black coat, but also the mullet.
Oh, Jesus. It's just a, give with one hand, taketh away with the other. All right, cool. I think that's probably it for the game, specifically about its mechanical stuff. It's worth touching upon the voice acting and the music a little bit. So I guess we'll talk about voice acting a bit first, because there's a little bit more to talk about. So who do you think the standout performance in this game is? Just to throw it at you.
Oh, Jesus. I don't know, honestly.
They're all very good. I mean, there's no duffers.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, they're all equally good. I wouldn't say there's a standout performance, but I don't mean that in a negative way. It's all really good. I enjoyed all the performances.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I've got a few notes. So Alyssa, English voice actor for Alyssa, is Kim, my guest, who plays Mei Ling in...
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Metal Gear Solid. So worth mentioning her. Quite interesting, because when I was doing the research, I thought, oh yeah, of course. Laura Bailey is obviously Serah in this game. What a performance, though. I mean, I think Like,
She
obviously,
kills
like
it too.
Laura Bailey's first role, I think, was Kid Trunks in Dragon Ball Z.
Really?
Yeah, I remember the years ago there was a Kid Trunks and Goten fused in the fusion dance, which you might be familiar with. And there was a thing at convention years ago where Laura Bailey, I believe, did the fusion dance with the Japanese voice actor for
That's
Goten,
cute.
which I remember from years ago being one of the coolest things in the world. Obviously, yeah, Lust in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Blood Rain was her first video game role, which didn't know
Was it
until I looked
really?
into that.
Kaine in Nier, of course.
Well, yeah, Kaine, but Cloud of Darkness and Dissidia,
Oh,
just to
yeah,
bring
of
your
course.
favourite boss up. And obviously Abby in Last of Us Part 2, and Critical Role. Apparently she's in Date Everything as well. So
That doesn't surprise. They got everyone who's everyone in Date Everything.
yeah. Jason Marsden's Noel. So
Yes.
Jason Marsden. Okay, what character comes to mind when you hear Jason Marsden? What jumps to mind for you? Is there anyone in particular?
So every time I forget who this guy has voiced, I have to go and look him up again. But the
a
only
lot of
one,
them.
yeah, he has done a lot of voices, and the only one that really sticks out as someone that I know is Haku from Spirited Away.
Okay, that's interesting. People go with that one. So a big one is Kovu in The Lion King 2.
I haven't actually seen The Lion King 2.
You've not seen The Lion King 2. So that's one of the ones that like a lot of people I know like really fancied Kovu in The Lion
Right.
King 2. That was a big thing. Like a lot of girls had a crush on him. But no, it's Max's son in Goofy movie.
Oh, right.
Sorry, Goofy's son Max in the Goofy movie, which is my favourite Disney movie.
You're gonna hate me, Jack.
Jason Marsden. What?
Never seen it.
You've never seen it?
Nope.
I mean, that's to be forgiven because it's it's quite a niche movie, but you've got to watch that. It's fantastic, and Jason Marsden is Max in that. Brilliant. And obviously he was in Fallout 2 as his first game in '98, and he was also in Baldur's Gate 1, which is quite funny, considering how big Baldur's Gate is now. Now, a couple of other ones, or one more actually, because I've mentioned Kim, my guest. Ariel Winter plays Mog.
Okay. Ariel Winter, that does sound very familiar, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what or who.
She's in lots of non-gaming stuff, and this will make you feel old. She was born in 1998, right? So
Jack, fuck off.
yeah, so she's like in Modern Family, the TV show. Probably know her from that, but mainly like the note I've got here, which is quite interesting, is that she was the voice of Marlene in Advent Children Complete.
Damn.
So for some reason they changed Marlene's voice actor. She's not Marlene in the original Advent Children. They changed it to Ariel Winter in the 2009 version. So that was her first role in Final Fantasy, it looks, and then came back as Mog. So yeah,
Step up or down, do you think? Going from Marlene to Mog?
to be totally honest with you, Marlene to Mog. Oh, step down. I don't know. I mean, they're both cool, aren't they? We like those characters. She's also young Kairi in some Kingdom Hearts games,
Oh, okay.
and let's not work out which ones because who fucking knows. And there's a game called The Quarry from 2022, and she's also a Moogle in Type 0, which I've mentioned, and we'll get to that eventually. So yeah, no, just I think like you say, there's no super standout performances. They're all fantastic. All of the voice actors bring their A game, even though they're in it game briefly. Ali Hillis, brilliant as lightning, even though she's in it for 10 minutes. All the returning cast really, really good. But yeah, I thought I'd mention just an excuse to talk about Jason Marsden and Laura Bailey, really. So and Liam O'Brien, obviously, I mentioned, did a really good job as Caius as the villain. So yes.
Awesome stuff.
so-
Have you got anything else to add?
Just a brief talk about the music. I really like the music in this game. It's Masashi
Hamauzu
Hamauzu,
again,
is
yeah.
it? But obviously did 13, but is joined by Naoshi Mizuta and Mizuto Suzuki. Now, pretty much from the sound of it, Hamauzu did like all the sort of main stuff, and then they were let to run and do what they wanted. And I think it works really well in this game because this game's got so many vocal themes that aren't like a one-winged angel or a or an Eyes on Me type. There's lots of vocals going on in the background. And I'm all here for that. And I think the idea was that the music was very, very unlike Final Fantasy, and I think it worked for this game.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would have worked for a mainline Final Fantasy necessarily, but for a game which is all about traveling to different places and stuff like that,
Needed to be a bit
I think it's really cool.
No, I agree with you. I really like the soundtrack for this game, but the biggest beef that I have with it is that there is just a standard battle theme. I don't like that battle theme either. I think it's very bleh. However, for every area that you go into, there is an aggressive mix which plays when you're being chased by monsters. The aggressive mixes should have been battle themes, and I don't understand why it wasn't, because we've had music that like plays through. It blew my mind that wasn't the case, and I
agree. I agree, because I don't particularly like the battle theme either. I think
Sucks.
it's a bit of
It fucking sucks.
big step down from 13. But the big step up is that the victory fanfare is lots better than the bollocks from 13. At least it's like this weird sort of like electronic stuff in the background. But no, I think there's not really that many standout tracks that I can go, that's really, really amazing. But the whole vibe of the different areas, the music in the different areas suited those different areas. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because it's worth mentioning.
Good stuff.
But other than that, there's nothing else for me to add.
I've got one final question for you before we end this episode, Jack. Are you excited for Lightning Returns?
Yes, I'm definitely excited for Lightning Returns.
Don't look very sure about that.
I'm excited and scared in equal measure.
I genuinely cannot wait for you to experience that game. And listeners, I hope to God that you can't wait either. It's going to be a time. I'll put it that way.
Dear. Okay, we'll see if I can do it at some point. Anyway, right, okay, so brilliant. So I think that wraps us up. So where can everyone find you online, Mol?
As usual, I can be found at Adramalek on both Twitter and Blue Sky. As usual, I just don't have time to be using social media, so if you really desperately need to get a hold of me, comments on YouTube are the way to go. Speaking of YouTube, we can, of course, be found at EXP Podcast or at EXP Required, and that goes for Twitter and Blue Sky as well. What about yourself, Jack?
So JackieBoy34 most places, and at Jack108 on Twitter, and also EXP Required on YouTube. I also have 2 Random Words, which is my stuff on YouTube, which I'm slowly trying to rebrand in some way for my own personal stuff. But other than that, yep, same places as Mole. I don't really use social media that much other than to respond to YouTube comments. If you want to speak to us, it's probably the best place to reach us. Please be nice.
Well, thank you for taking the time for this one, Jack. I had a blast as usual.
So did I.
And I'll speak to you soon. Thank you for listening, everyone. Bye.
Bye.